Cardinal Allen goes up alone to fight Dracula. That leaves the chief judge and the rest of them turning their eyes on me. The knight commander lifts his longsword and steps out ahead of the others. He demands coldly whether the alien dares to face him. Holy light sheathes the blade as he says it. He does not attack though and only watches me in silence. There is no hurry in him at all, because every second he stalls brings the Crusaders closer. I look back at him and my eyes go cold. This is the very man who cut down more than a dozen of my Comanical army earlier. Their heads went back on afterward, and I am still annoyed. If I let that slide, what would the Mechanical army think of me? What authority would the Mechanical Emperor have left? You were not even hiding, and now you jump out in front. Good. I tell him that if he wants to die, I will grant the wish. Then I put my hand out and clench it toward him. The instant I move, he feels doom land on him. Before he can raise any guard at all, his body locks in place. No matter how he strains against it, terror floods his eyes because he cannot begin to understand how an alien is this strong. I say one word to him, the end, and close my palm slowly. Pressure settles over him and his mouth opens wide with no scream in it. Then he and his armor crumple together. Blood and pulped flesh spray through the seams and stain the ground red. Several spheres of light drop where he stood. The church's knight commander is finished. The others finally catch up to what they have seen. Every gaze on me is soaked in terror, because one wave of my hand killed the knight commander in front of them. I walk over and absorb the light spheres. Then I decisively recycle the traits I took off the Crusader squad leader earlier. Light affinity in yellow and holy power in blue pay out 5 trait points. On top of the 5 I had banked, that leaves me 10. My step forward makes the chief judge and his people retreat on instinct, wary and terrified. The chief judge sweats hard because he is stronger than the knight commander by only a hair. The man was erased in a blink. He knows exactly what standing in my way would buy him. Then I turn my gaze on them properly. I say nothing, and the pressure coming off me still sets every church heart hammering. The chief judge grinds his teeth and shouts at his men to attack together or die together. Then he charges me first. The rest see no other road and come in a wave of brandished weapons and holy light. I tell them flatly that they are courting death. Every one of them freezes in place. The commotion pulls the cardinal's attention down from the sky. His face shifts hard, and he blurts out that no one can possibly be this strong. He is shaken enough that his attacks slow. A cold voice above him asks whether he dares be distracted mid-fight and tells him to go to hell. Dracula's blow lands before the cardinal can finish raising his staff, driving the staff itself into his own chest. Blood sprays from the old man's mouth and he falls like a meteor. He smashes into the ground and coughs up another mouthful. He looks different now, his hair far whiter and the lines in his face deeper. His holy wings are gone and his legs are bent at an angle that says they snapped in the fall. Dracula's voice rolls down triumphant, asking how that felt and asking what burning his holy light can possibly do. He tells the old man that he wanted a kill, so he should come and take it. He does not press though, dropping out of his transformed state and landing nearby to look down at his enemy. The cardinal coughs and drags his head up to look at Dracula, then at me, then at his own frozen men. Something settles behind his eyes. He had prepared for this, just not under these circumstances. The next second, holy light erupts off the cardinal, far past anything he showed before. It throws Dracula clean across the plaza. Cardinal Allen's voice rings out deep and even. He says the Lord promises light triumphs over darkness and that the holy radiance pierces the haze to bathe the earth. He says he can forsake everything for it, his own life included. He offers his life as a vessel and begs his Lord for the power to shatter the darkness over this world. It sounds like a confession and like a man talking to himself at once. Dracula's face falls apart and he curses him for using himself as a sacrifice. Then he flashes in front of me, calling me master and saying we have to leave now. He explains that the old man has lost his mind and is burning his life to summon an angel avatar. He adds that staying clear until his life force runs out keeps us safe. I narrow my eyes, and what I feel is not fear. I ask how long that life force lasts, and confirm the avatar cannot exceed a duke. Dracula, seeing that I have no intention of moving, answers anxiously that 10 minutes is the absolute most. He begs me not to risk it when avoidance costs nothing. I shake my head and tell him we wait. Then I freeze him mid-protest with instructions to wait patiently. Interrupting the sacrifice would have been easy, and I pass. I want to measure an angel's quality and test a theory. Killing the avatar may well drop traits. Angel traits are worth standing still for. Before that, there are small pests to clear. I crush the frozen chief judge and his men to paste with a thought. The traits are identical across the board and still useful. Light affinity in red, plus holy power in red, pay out 10 trait points, taking my bank to 20. I recall the mechanical army and look up at Alan, rising into the air. He has no wings now, and still he stands straight on nothing. His face has aged further and his hair has gone entirely white. His broken legs have healed at some point I did not catch, and the aura pouring off him keeps thickening. Holy light saturates the space around him, lighting up a good half of the Blood Fortress Plaza. Then his aura surges violently and 2 pairs of light wings burst from his back. These are nothing like the wings Alan could put out before. There are 4 of them, spanning at least 10 meters, every feather distinct and lifelike. Golden light swirls in my eyes and insight goes to work. The panel names him the 4-winged angel avatar at 5-star late stage. 5 plunderable traits hang off him. Light affinity in gold marks him a darling of the light elements with unparalleled affinity. Holy power in gold is sacred angelic force that strengthens the body and mends wounds. It also carries a terrifying damage bonus against dark creatures. Holy wings in blue are the wings of a 4-winged angel. For some reason they cannot show their full power. Holy blessing in red imbues an item with holy properties, granting it anti-magic, strengthening, and self-repair. Holy resistance in gold is 50% immunity to attacks of the holy attribute. My theory holds then because the host's traits have changed entirely. Killing him inside 10 minutes drops all of it, and I intend to have every line of it. The noise reaches the charging crusaders. Those giant light wings and that dense holy aura send them out of their minds. They shout that an angel has descended, that their faith was never misplaced, and that the light belongs to them. Then they pour toward the fortress like men injected with something. The survivors just stare at each other. A vampire nest was already more than they could chew, and now there is an angel overhead. The only question left is whether a hell demon shows up next. Then the same thought lands on all of them, that the angel is on their side, and not cashing in would be a waste. So they howl and charge too. Up in the air, Alan opens his eyes. The pupils are pure white. His gaze sweeps around and locks onto me and Dracula. His cold face picks up an edge of disgust as he calls us filthy evil creatures and pronounces us guilty. A long spear forms in his hand. With one throw it splits in 2 mid-flight, both halves streaking down at us. The one aimed at me hits 10 meters out and slows like it has run into a swamp. Then it stops dead 5 meters from my face and simply hangs there. I narrow my eyes, satisfied because his combat power is inside a range I can handle. Pinning him with air alone would take some doing though. Lucky for me that air is not the only thing I own. He makes a soft sound of surprise. His gaze goes colder as he calls me a filthy creature again. His wrist turns and a sword of light forms in his hand. He slashes down hard, sending a blade of holy energy carving through the air at me. It reaches me, enters somewhere else entirely and vanishes. He frowns at that. Before he can chase the thought, his back explodes with a holy power he knows intimately, and his body staggers in the air. He flaps his wings level, touches his back, and comes away with a smear of red on his fingers. He is injured. His face goes gloomy as holy power circles him and closes the wound to nothing. He demands to know how I did it. I grin and tell him that if he wants to know, he can beg me. He calls it a death wish, murderous intent boiling in those white eyes. He lifts his sword until a giant blade of light extends off it. It drives up into the sky like a sword planted in the heavens. He tells me I have angered him, and that since I seek death he will grant it. He names the blow Holy Judgment. The giant sword comes down. My eyes go cold. I fling Dracula bodily aside, take one step, and vanish. The blade lands where I am not. The sound is deafening and the ground shakes on and on. The crowd charging the blood fortress stumbles and goes down in a heap. They look up to find the fortress split cleanly in 2. The muttering runs fast, that this is what an angel's power looks like, that the light will prevail. The chant spreads until somebody quietly asks whether they still need to charge. The whole plane goes silent. In the sky, Alan looks at the halved fortress and nods, satisfied. He says the darkness always dissipates in the end. A voice comes from behind him asking whether he knows how punchable he looks like that. His white pupils shrink and he snaps his head around. All he sees is the sole of a size 11 shoe, already filling his vision. He tries to dodge, far too late. The kick lands square on his face. He screams and drops. He hits the ground hard enough to leave a human-shaped crater with him embedded in it. Face up, his features distorted around one very clear shoe print. Balls of light scatter beside him. I stand in the air, blink, and look down at my own foot. No way. He died from that? This was the first time I have opened myself all the way up. I was honestly looking forward to a straight fight, flesh against flesh. I put weight into one kick and the other side was already on the floor. So much for unparalleled power. A glass cannon angel. Was the whole thing a scam? A closer look tells me it was never the angel that was fragile. It was the host. Alan has lost the shape of a human being, and Gaunt does not cover it. He is a skeleton wrapped in skin with every hair long since fallen out. He was old before any of this started. The whole sequence, the fighting, the outbursts, the wounds, the healing, the ultimate move, ate his life force piece by piece. Without a fight he might have lasted 10 minutes, but with one, 3 was going to be generous. My kick cleaned out the remainder. I land beside him with bright eyes and absorb the orbs the avatar dropped. Light affinity in gold, holy power in gold, holy wings in blue, holy blessing in red, holy resistance in gold. I take what I can and replace what needs replacing. Warmth spreads through me and a flood of information lands in my head. All of it is the practical application of holy power. My raw attributes do not move, but my ability to eat a hit, my endurance, and my nobility all climb sharply. Best of all, this stuff is fantastic for showing off. The next time I run into blonde-haired, blue-eyed locals, I just spread my wings and I am a god. I go through what the cardinal and the others were carrying and find nothing except a cross pendant. It is palm-sized and silver-framed, with a square sapphire set into the center. It looks expensive and it suits me. If the chance ever comes, I could pass myself off as a priest. Robes plus the cross plus a wash of holy power would make the disguise airtight. Dracula scurries over gushing that I am too amazing, and that his admiration runs endless like meltwater off a snow mountain. He wears the face people say for deities. It was an angel avatar and I put it down with one kick. Even allowing that Alan's foundation was rotten, he is not wrong. I tell him to take me to the church headquarters, and I tell him there is something there I want. A minute later, 3 figures lift off and vanish over the horizon, leaving the empty blood fortress behind. Out on the plains, the survivors hold a long committee meeting. The question is whether the angel's radiance disappearing means it is safe to go look. They agree it has been quiet a while, and they agree to wait a little longer. Letting the other races take the front line was the plan all along. So when those races come sprinting past, nobody moves to stop them, and a few of the survivors even wave them on. Then somebody works out that the target is the treasure vault, and the whole calculation reverses on the spot. The whole plane stampedes, crusaders included, and every one of them is destined to walk away with almost nothing. We are still in the air when the third day breaks and the mission prompt lands. It is called Kill Hostile Forces. As a member of the vampire race, I am to kill 10 members of hostile forces before the day ends. I glance at it and leave it alone, since I happen to be flying to the church anyway. Sitting on Jella, I turn my attention to the 7 unused lottery cards in my hand. All of them came off vampire counts. Ella's cards I already drew, and Dracula is still breathing, so 7 is what I have. I have been saving them for one clean 7 draw. My luck feels good after taking an angel's traits. I breathe out and pull all 7 at once. The system confirms the draw and lays out the haul. 2 perfect vampire potions, 2 mithril crossbow bolts, 2 rolls of 5 free attributes, and 1 forbidden item called the blood key. The note on it says it is one of the 13 sacred relics of the vampire, a key that opens the gates of hell. For some reason, it can only be used once. Everything else is standard, so I wave the rest away and keep only the key. It is blood-colored and wholly transparent, about 30 centimeters long and thumb thick, less a key than a short rod. I would love to see the door it was cut for. Opening the gates of hell sounds magnificent right up until you remember you have to know where the gates are. Even then, whether I would dare is another question, because hell does not suit me yet. Maybe later, in some realm that carries both angel and hell factions. Since the thing works exactly once, it has to be saved for a moment that matters. I decide to shelve it, then out of pure habit cast insight on it as I go to put it away. My hand stops. This thing has a trait. The panel names it the blood key, forbidden, rated level 6, carrying 1 lootable trait, realm breaking in white. Realm breaking punches through any spatial barrier or formation and opens a channel between 2 worlds. The cost is 10 drops of vampire essence blood per use. That should not be possible since only living things carry plunderable traits. Either the key is alive, then, or it was forged out of something that was. I turn to Dracula, flying attentively at my shoulder. I ask little Drac how much he knows about the 13 sacred relics of his race. My stare tightens his gut and he drifts sideways before thinking better of it. Then he tells me Master is truly knowledgeable to even know the relics exist. I tell him to skip the flattery. He admits he knows little beyond what his ancestors wrote down. On the blood key specifically, he frowns for 2 seconds before answering. By the records, it was forged from the finger bone and flesh essence of a certain dark demon god. Its magical power opens the gates of hell, crosses spatial barriers, and strengthens a vampire's blood energy. He adds that he cannot vouch for any of it. That explains the trait then, and it is the forging material talking. When I ask where the 13 relics are, he coughs twice and says he genuinely does not know. He knows only that they are in hell and that he has never been there. He will swear it on his blood. If they are in hell, there is nothing to be done for now. I look back down at the key. Dracula relaxes once the questions stop and notices what I am holding. He blurts out that I must have asked because of it. He adds hastily that he means no offense, but the thing does resemble the blood key from his clan's records. I tell him it is not a resemblance. He agrees on reflex, catches up half a second later, and nearly comes apart. He demands to know how I got it when the records put it in hell since his great-great-grandfather's day. I tell him to go and play somewhere else. He swallows the rest and flies on in silence, eyes glued to the key. In 1,000 years, he has never once laid eyes on it. I fall into thought over how to plunder the thing's attribute. The answer is that I have to destroy it. 5 minutes of study leaves me wearing a wholly helpless expression, because no method I own scratches it. It looks like a key and it takes damage like a rumor. So I ask little Drac whether there is any way to destroy a blood key. The question freezes him solid. He repeats the word destroy twice, as though I have proposed setting fire to his ancestors. His eyes go strange and confused, but my stare gets an answer out of him. He says there is a way. The key was crafted from a demon god's finger bone. The demonic nature in it makes it nearly indestructible by ordinary means. Holy power applied steadily wears that nature away. When it is fully extinguished, the key falls apart on its own. Then he adds that the holy power has to be at least the grade the detestable birdmen of heaven carry, and that obtaining any is all but impossible, except he never reaches the last word. There he chokes, because white light is already blooming across my palm. He gapes and asks whether that is holy power. Feeling it at her back, Giella twists mid-flight. My palm lands across her rear without ceremony, and I tell her coldly not to squirm. She shudders and holds perfectly still after that. My attention goes back to the key. The white light touches the blood-colored surface, and something reacts. The key flushes deeper red and pushes a red glow back against the white, the two of them grinding at each other. My eyes brighten because it is actually working. Then the brightness fades a few seconds later. Because it works at a speed I can only describe as geological. There is no better method available, so time is the method. The grinding runs 2 solid hours. At the end of them, a mountain rises in the distance with a sprawling church on top of it. The church's earthly headquarters. The moment I see it, an alarm goes off inside. Guards shout about an enemy attack, shout Dracula's name, shout for somebody to report it. Terror all around, and not because the guards can identify an intruder at that range. They have binoculars. Humanity's real strength has always been its willingness to build things. After generations of fighting vampires, the church has the best early warning anyone here could manage. Word reaches Vice Bishop Oles, minding the headquarters. He exclaims in disbelief that Dracula has come in person, because every elite force the church owns is deployed elsewhere. He asks how many came, his voice shaking without his permission. The subordinate tells him 2 vampires and 1 outsider. Oles starts to say it is over, then stops and asks the number again. He changes posture entirely when he hears 3. 3 of them dared to storm the church. With the panic gone, his mind starts working. He chews on why only 3 because it is nothing like Dracula, until a possibility surfaces. Perhaps Cardinal Allen succeeded and the church stormed the Blood Fortress. Perhaps Dracula fled and now wants to vent his rage on an undefended headquarters. The longer he holds the idea, the better he likes it. If it is true, he only has to stall until the bishop's return. He orders his people to prepare and raise the holy light barrier. Then he walks off toward a certain part of the church himself. Dracula's reputation is real, the gap between them is wide, and safety calls for auxiliary measures. As we come in, a shield of light stops us cold. It is an enormous inverted bowl dropped over the whole church. Dracula halts and whispers that this is the holy light barrier. He says breaking it takes at least 4 counts working together. I raise an eyebrow, because to me it is a formality. Dimensional space would get me in, Earth escape would get me in, and smashing it would get me in. I pick a 4th option. I land, walk up, and set my hand flat against it. The holy light ripples, flickers twice, and opens a hole several meters wide. A man holding a fistful of gold-grade holy attributes does not get stopped by a wall made of the same thing. I tell them to come along. Dracula and Giella stare at each other and hurry after me. We step through into someone exclaiming that it is impossible, that no one can break the holy light barrier. The speaker is a churchman armored head to foot in gold. Dracula leans in and murmurs that this is the Vice Bishop Oles. The golden battle armor the man wears was blessed by an angel and enhances its wearer enormously. He adds that when Alan wore that armor, it took 3 vampire counts attacking together to hold him. The man should not be underestimated. I raise an eyebrow and let golden light swirl. Insight reads him as Vice Bishop, 4-star mid-stage, carrying light affinity in red and holy power in red. It reads the holy golden battle armor as a 4-star item with nothing plunderable on it. Nothing special about the man, but a 4-star rating on a suit of armor is respectable. Oles recovers first and fixes on me at the front, and solemnity creeps into his eyes. The barrier was broken by the alien in front of him, and Dracula is standing behind that alien like a man following orders. Even a fool could see something is deeply wrong here. He does not understand the situation, but if the alien is in charge, this may not have to come to blows. So he speaks first and asks what the alien and the vampires want. I have no interest in a conversation, so I unfold a pair of holy wings with a thought. Sacred brilliance floods the courtyard and dyes me white from head to foot. Holy aura rolling out across everything. I steer it so it does not so much as sting Dracula and Giella. The 2 of them are stunned anyway, because they knew I carried holy power and nobody mentioned wings. These are every bit the equal of the angel avatars. The thought that Master might be an angel come down to the mortal world does cross their minds. Both throw it straight back out, because they would sooner believe it of themselves. They felt the murderous intent rolling off me a moment ago. On top of that, they watched me kick an angel avatar into a crater. On the other side, Oles and his people are frozen. Every thought in the vice bishop's head collapses into one conclusion. An angel has descended and subdued Dracula. He wonders briefly why an angel has an outsider's black hair and black eyes, and decides it does not matter. An angel is judged by holy aura and not by face, and holy power on this scale cannot be counterfeited. Even Cardinal Allen never reached this level, and no barrier holds a real angel. He drops to his knees with his face shining and greets me as his Lord Angel. He calls himself my loyal believer, Oles. The guards behind him trade looks and go down one after another with greetings of their own. Dracula and Gila exchange bewildered glances. They work through who they are, where they are, and what is happening, and come up empty on all three. Neither believes for a second that I am an angel. Neither says a word either, because nobody fighting is a perfectly acceptable outcome. My lips curl. I expected the wings to smooth things over. I did not expect them to smooth things over this thoroughly, and faith really does cut both ways. I tell Oles to get up and take me to the church's treasury. He starts to agree on reflex, catches himself, and shows a startled face. When I ask whether there is a problem, he hesitates. The hesitation lasts exactly as long as it takes to feel the holy power coming off me, and then he asks me to follow him. Half an hour later, I am in a side hall, listening to Oles explain his own institution. I turn a golden cup over in my hands while he talks. It is half full of golden liquid. The cup is called the Holy Grail, and the liquid is holy water. The Grail pulls in the holy power of heaven and earth on its own, and condenses one drop every 10 days. That water baptizes a person and converts their attribute over to light. Since it is an acquired talent, the only way to improve the aptitude is to keep taking baptisms. The more a person takes, the stronger the light attribute grows. It tops out around a bishop's level, which in trait terms means red at best. That is the whole answer to why every last person in the church carries light. Otherwise, nobody could ever find that many of them. Insight reads the Holy Grail as 4-star with nothing plunderable, and the holy water is 3-star the same. There are roughly 100 drops in the cup, the stock of many years. It would be far deeper if the church did not keep losing people in battle. The Grail is not the only reason the church can stand against the vampires. They also hold a single attribute evolution crystal of the light attribute, 5-star by the panel, nothing plunderable. Ordinary crystals are non-attribute and anyone can absorb them. This one only opens to someone who already carries light. The difference is efficiency, since a single attribute crystal absorbs faster and carries a higher daily ceiling. Given the same time, the person on it grows faster. That would be wonderful if the crystals were not rare, and if owning one guaranteed you could use it. For most people, it comes down to luck. I do not have that problem. In a cheater's world, everything works out. So I settle in and stay at the church. Winter Plum, shut in the space this whole time, finally gets to come out and breathe. This world is large. Mobility matters, and she has not had much to contribute lately. Being a robot, she never complains about it, which is one of the many things I appreciate. Pleasant to have around, versatile, obedient, well-behaved, no temper, needs no coaxing. Try finding a secretary like that anywhere else. Once your strength gets high enough, most problems become as simple as eating and drinking. The daily basic task is a good example. I have Oles bring me 10 death row prisoners out of the church's own cells and kill them without ceremony. The prompt pays 300 killing value for the third day's basic task. After that, I go into seclusion. I absorb single attribute crystals to push my strength while grinding away at the blood key without a break. Meanwhile, the chat channel detonates. The whole feed is one continuous plea for vampire tracks, thousands begging for a lead. Most have burned an entire day finding nothing. Some risked their lives storming a blood fortress only to find it swept bare. One survivor reports wandering all day, provoking the sky itself, and drawing not a single vampire. Somebody floats the theory that the angel from a few hours ago wiped them out, which draws immediate objections. The angel only appeared at Dracula's fortress. Ella's fortress is empty, the Viking fortress is empty, and so is everywhere else anyone has checked. The counter-argument lands fast, that the church launched an all-out attack and that Dracula surely called every vampire in to support him. The church's angel trump card then erased them in shaking. Then somebody raises the church's vampire prisoners. Somebody else points out that the church despises black-haired, black-eyed people. A third answers that hostility is only a pricing problem. The church can be bought or paid in silver weapons. And then the real proposal lands. With the church's main force still resting at Dracula's fortress, everyone should gather, storm the headquarters, wipe them out, and appoint themselves pope. The treasure reportedly holds all kinds of strength-enhancing treasures. The channel loses its mind in a single voice. Within minutes, the tone shifts from despair to logistics, everyone confirming positions and arguing over rendezvous points. Looking down at the continent right then, you would see countless black dots converging on the church. Outside the church treasury, the air distorts and a masked woman with a very good figure appears at the door. She checks both ways, sees no one, and consults a piece of parchment. She mutters that this is definitely the treasury, but that she was told there would be guards. She confirms the place and decides that missing guards only make her job easier. She pulls open her neckline and produces a set of tools from a location best left undescribed. Then she goes to work on the lock. A few minutes later it clicks. She informs herself smugly that her title of little lock-picking expert is not just decorative. She slips inside and pulls the door shut. A minute later it opens again and she walks out with a face like weather. She looks at the parchment and throws it away. She snarls that they are all liars, that there are no treasures in there, not even a stool. Then she curses the ancestors of whoever drew the map. Then she hears footsteps and darts for a dark corner. The air distorts and swallows her. 2 church members come around the corner and stop at the door. The first panics about the treasury being left ajar and starts to say they should report a break-in. The second smacks him on the back of the head and tells him to use his brain. That Lord took everything inside, and there is nothing left to lock up. The first one agrees that he had genuinely forgotten. The second hurries him along before they miss prayer time. In the shadows, the air distorts again and the masked woman reappears, watching them go. Thoughtful. The treasury is real. Someone simply moved it. Half an hour later, I am absorbing a crystal when something tugs at my senses. My eyes go to the closed door. It clicks. A black shadow slips through, and the door shuts behind it. She gets half a sentence out about this being the place before her gaze meets mine. The air in the room curdles. I look her over. Black bodysuit and a chest that is difficult to ignore. She informs me that what I saw was actually an illusion, and vanishes. A stealth ability, and she hid her presence with it too. Unfortunately for her, a godlike body lets me feel the position of any living creature without using my eyes at all. Her little trick does nothing here. In my perception, she is standing exactly where she was, patting her own chest and studying me with open curiosity. Golden light crosses my vision. Insight names her Wu Bing Bing, 2-star, carrying stealth in purple and light as a swallow in blue. Stealth drops her into hiding at any moment, body and presence both, at half her movement speed. Light as a swallow lightens her body and raises her speed. A stealth type, as I thought, with a mobility trait riding alongside it. Wu Bing Bing. That name is familiar, and I frown at it until a news report from my past life surfaces whole. The legendary thief Wu Bing Bing failed while stealing a sacred artifact from the Japanese. She was hunted and surrounded by the top 10 experts on the Japanese leaderboard, and she died there. She is not comfortable under my stare, and knowing she is invisible does not help. The feeling gets to her anyway, and she shuffles sideways. Then she goes rigid, because the man across the room moved his eyes with her. She checks herself over and confirms she cannot see her own body. She concludes the gaze must be a coincidence. She moves to a different spot to prove it and finds my eyes waiting there too. She starts to come apart. She moves again. What I get to watch, therefore, is a woman shuffling left, shuffling right, crouching, flattening herself along the wall. She cycles through every position she can think of. My cheek twitches when she starts reaching for her clothes, because there is a limit to what I will sit through. I freeze her with a thought. A ball of water forms above her head while terror fills her face, and it drops. She is soaked to the bone in an instant, her tight suit clinging in ways it was never designed to. The effect is undeniably striking. For a man with certain preferences, there would be a whole performance to follow. I do not have those preferences, and women only slow down the business of getting stronger. The soaking knocks her out of stealth automatically. She has no attention left for her own state, staring at me wide-eyed and refusing to believe it, asking whether I can actually see her. I do not answer. I wave my hand and her body floats over to me under no power of her own. A force lifts the mask off her face. What is underneath is unforgettable at first sight. It is a stunning face with exquisitely seductive features and a pair of foxy eyes that blink like they are hinting at something. It is not deliberate, since it is simply how she was born. It makes anyone looking at her think of a vixen. Unfortunately for her, I live surrounded by Winter Plum and the others. I am immune even to Autumn Chrysanthemum, who has made an entire personality out of aiming to be the Gumiho. This one is still fairly naive by comparison. I ask her what she came here for and what she is looking for. Wu Bingbing is terrified, unable to shift an inch no matter how she fights it. Only her head can move a little, which she correctly reads as deliberate. The man in front of her is so strong she cannot even struggle properly. She is already privately mourning that she ever walked through that door. She stammers out a question about who exactly I am. My expression goes cold, and the space around her head solidifies until she can neither move it nor pull in oxygen. Her panic turns into terror, because this is the second time she has faced death, the first being the day she entered the space. One rehearsal has not made it easier. She wants to beg and cannot speak at all. Her face goes red, then purple. Just as her eyes start to roll back, the pressure lifts and air rushes in. I tell her that in this room only I ask questions. She nods frantically while she breathes, having just watched her great-grandmother wave at her from somewhere pleasant. I ask her name. She blurts out Wang Bakcha on pure reflex. A girl out in the world should protect her age, her name, and her birth date. My eye twitches. Wang Bakja. Does that name suit the face at all? I tell her it sounds fake and that I had expected her to say Wu Bing Bing. Her eyes blow wide as though I have performed a miracle. She gets as far as asking how I could possibly know her before the suffocation comes back. She realizes her error instantly. After a second guided tour of her great-grandmother, she turns out to be a very obedient conversationalist. I ask again what she is doing here. She answers honestly that she came looking for the church's treasure. She hit the treasury first and found it empty. A church member let slip that the treasure had been moved here, and she genuinely did not expect anyone inside. All of this is an accident then. I nod, because that is very much her. Then I consider what to do with her and settle on Mind Edict. She has real potential, which the Thief Saint title from her past life proves on its own. Later I can send her after things that are hard to fetch. A subordinate who walks into my room and shuts the door behind herself is not something a man refuses. Seconds later, the conversion takes and I release the restraint. She rubs her wrists and tells me her boss is not gentle at all and that she has developed a psychological trauma. She shivers at the memory of those two family reunions. Her heart is a complicated place right now. Nobody enters a survival space, takes one wrong door, and comes out with a boss. She is deeply annoyed and there is nothing whatsoever she can do about it. She cannot feel any hostility toward me and she cannot refuse any demand I make. That goes up to and including the one she would rather not think about. That is what a red tier trait buys. It is not remotely comparable to the leash I once had on Peng Ho. I raise a hand and toss her an evolution crystal the size of a baby's fist. She catches it on reflex and asks what it is. I tell her it is a level 3 evolution crystal, enough to keep her absorbing for 2 days. She is one of mine now and she will be working for me, so a little investment is only proper. That one came out of the mutated corpse emperor and has been gathering dust in my space ever since. It is useless to me and perfect for her. Since she is destined to become the Thief Saint, I will not interfere too heavily in how she grows. Too much help would cripple the process. With the right amount, she should climb higher than she ever did before. Her eyes go enormous. The hand holding the bottle trembles as she asks whether it is really for her. When I offer to take it back, she refuses so fast the words trip over each other. Then she hauls open her collar in front of me and drops the crystal straight down it. I have no idea where it went. Since her silhouette does not change by a millimeter, I now have a rough estimate of Wu Bingbing's assets. She looks at me with sparkling eyes. Then she throws herself at my arm and rubs it with both hands. Was she not worried the crystal would be uncomfortable in there? Perhaps this is the confidence that comes with abundant capital. She tells me sweetly that the shadow on her heart has not fully healed and that I will have to take full responsibility. That is a request for more presents in a thin costume. My cheek twitches. I offer to take back what I just gave her if she does not want it. Her expression locks up and she lets go of my arm. She denies it 3 times in a row before announcing that the shadow on her heart has suddenly and completely healed. I ignore the performance and look her over until she squirms. Then I ask whether she knows why I took her in. She puffs out her chest and says I must have taken a fancy to her value. I curl my lip and tell her she is very smart and that I think highly of her. 10 minutes later, she leaves alone. I tell her to go find somewhere to wash her hands. I leave her my contact information first and tell her to reach out once she is back in reality. Then I check the chat channel and my eyes stop moving. The survivors are going to attack the church as a group. That is real desperation. The holy light barrier alone is more than that crowd can crack. Quantity does turn into quality eventually, but the premise is that the quantity can get through the defense in the first place. If it cannot, more of it changes nothing. Still, I know about it now. After a moment's thought, I hand the whole matter to Alls to arrange and stop paying attention. I take out the crystal and go back to absorbing. Another day burns away, and the 4th day's mission arrives. Plot for Blood Essence, it calls itself. As a member of the vampire race, I am to obtain 1 complete drop of vampire essence blood. It must not come from my own body, and it must be in hand before the day ends. The hint helpfully adds that essence blood sits inside a vampire's heart and that only living vampires have any. I narrow my eyes because the difficulty has climbed again. A complete drop means killing at least 10 living vampires. Doing that inside the vampire faction without being noticed is a good way to get hunted by the entire race. There are plenty of ways around it. Completing a mission does not always require strength, and a brain works just as well. You could farm merit-killing church members and trade it to a high-ranking vampire for essence blood. You could set a trap and take a batch right before the countdown ends, then leave the space the moment it does. That erases the hunting problem. You could climb to a rank like squad leader and quietly execute vampire criminals. It all depends on how the person thinks. Inside the space, there is no such thing as an impossible mission. Each time the space opens, the monsters get stronger and newcomers face steeper walls. Every one of those monsters has a weakness. Once the method is found, the killing is not the hard part. Sometimes you do not even do the killing yourself. The wider the rating gap, the richer the payout. Plenty of newcomers in my past life never killed a thing and simply hid. Their ratings were garbage while their strength climbed fast because the trading platform was right there. That is the single biggest gift the space hands to newcomers. Anyone holding a resource others lack can trade cards for killing value and buy strength directly. Many roads lead to getting stronger, and all of them start with a change of mindset. For me, this mission is a joke. Since I am sitting on over 1,000 drops of complete essence blood, I take one out and the prompt calls it done. That is 400 killing value for the 4th day's basic task. It is so lonely at the top. Humming, I go back under and lose myself in absorbing and refining. Several hours later, battle cries roll through the entire church. Survivors scream at each other to charge in, seize the treasures, kill everything, burn everything, loot everything. I hear all of it and it moves me not at all, so I keep absorbing. After a while, the noise thins out and the church goes quiet again. Ols comes to report at once, calling me master and saying the outsiders' riot has been suppressed. 233 took part, 40 escaped, and the rest were put down, excluding a handful trampled to death by their own companions. The death toll did not reach 10. I listen to him while I read the chat channel, which is a masterpiece. The general complaint is that these natives learn to build traps instead of learning to pray. One man is furious about being lured out over a 10-meter pit lined with a layer of filth. Another dangles from a tree asking for rescue. Another sobs that the church is not a place fit for humans. Several are indignant that a barrier held against 100 people without flexing. Then the ones who ran and the ones who did not start on each other. The runners retort that they were not going to stand still and wait for disaster. Everyone blames everyone for the shape of their own retreat. Somebody points out at length that he warned them all along. He gets called a Monday morning quarterback for it. The early thread was informative and the rest is a pure insult platform. I leave it alone and tell Ols I understand, and he may go. Another half day passes with the channel still arguing, because there is nothing else for them to do. There are no monsters to find and no natives they can beat. A continent of restless young people fights in a text box instead. I have stopped absorbing by then, because my strength broke through again. The single attribute crystal really is efficient, forcing each of my 4 attributes up by 30 points in under 2 days, and carrying me to 7-star. That also means 5-star crystals are useless to me now. My panel reads Strength 210, Physique 210, Speed 210, Spirit 210. 20 free attributes sit banked, and the combat rating is 7-star early stage. Overall, I am satisfied with what this killing space has paid out. The single blot on it is the blood key, which grinds down at a pace best described as touching. After 2 days of steady work, the progress is heartwarming to look at and almost impossible to measure. There is nothing to be done about it. Realm breaking is worth the grind, and I will keep grinding until one of us gives out. With half a day left, I leave my room and come back 30 minutes later carrying a bloody smell and a lottery card. The source was Dracula. My departure is imminent, so there is no reason to keep him around. He can make one final contribution instead. The same logic applies to Gila, because every scrap of killing value counts. I do leave Ols alive, since the golden battle armor and the church's foundation are already sitting in my space. Killing church members is not like killing monsters, and it pays nothing at all. There would be no point. Then I use the card, and the draw resolves into a Dracula summoning card, 1 copy. It summons Dracula to descend and take orders from whoever summoned him, at a strength rating equal to the summoners. The summon lasts a full day. That is genuinely interesting. The Dracula I just killed would be worth nothing to me now. A Dracula who scales to my own rating is another matter. When I eventually go to heaven, I can put him out front to draw fire. I slip in behind him while he holds their attention. Perfect. The 4th day winds down, and I total up quietly. 1,082 drops of vampire essence blood. 1,000 of those go to the system for killing value, and the remainder stays with me for research and for opening the gates of hell. At 900 a drop, that is 900,000. With the cards on top, it clears 1,000,000 conservatively. The card count came in unexpectedly high at 1,230. Over 900 of them came off dead vampires, and over 200 off the trading platform. Recycling the lot pays about 120,000 killing value. A very respectable pile. The countdown ends and the space announces it is over. It returns me to the settlement, where a row of golden letters flickers in the void in front of me. Rating settlement in progress. Survivor alive. Base rating D rank. 4 daily basic tasks completed. Upgraded to C rank. Over 100 monsters killed. Upgraded to B rank. Over 1,000 A rank. Over 10,000 S rank. Over 100 material cards held. SS rank. 9 special monsters killed. SSS rank. Final rating. SSS. Then the familiar golden light and the familiar ranking list. Open to the 4th page. It congratulates me on an SSS rank evaluation, on entering a list, and on taking 1st place. It notes this is my 4th accumulated first, with an additional reward waiting at 5. First place shows as you, an amassed character at SSS rank, second is Son at C rank, third is Huang, fourth is Zhou. It runs all the way down to 100th place Zhu at D rank. Because I stripped the monsters out of that entire space, only about 30 people managed C rank. Everybody else sits at D rank, plenty having never finished the basic tasks at all. A low rating does not mean less killing value though. An open-minded person can pull in a great deal through other channels without killing anything. The chat channel promptly explodes again. Everyone is stunned that the top spot took SSS again, and they demand to know how Big Bro you managed it against vampires of all things. Then somebody voices the immature thought that maybe nobody could find monsters. Maybe the top spot had already killed them all. The channel spirals into a cheerful panic about being silenced for knowing too much. Several people swear to shout in the feed if any of them disappears. Somebody calls them all drama queens. My rewards land next. The SSS evaluation pays all attributes plus 7, free attributes plus 20, and 2,000 killing value. The system detects 1,226 remaining cards and converts them automatically into 123,000 killing value. That takes me to 139,500. Then it recovers 1,000 drops of 3-star vampire essence blood for 900,000 more. My balance reads 1,039,500. The killing shop list refreshes. The usual sequence and attributes come first. 4-dimensional attributes plus 10 for 400, leaving 1,039,100. Plus 10 again for 4,000, leaving 1,035,100. Plus 10 again for 40,000, leaving 995,100. Plus 10 a fourth time for 400,000, leaving 595,100. 4 in a row, and then I decisively stop. That leaves 40 free attributes. I hold back 8 and spread the remaining 32 evenly, 8 points into each of the 4. My attributes finally settle, and my strength surges. The panel reads Yuan, Strength 265, Physique 265, Spirit 265, Spirit 265. 8 free attributes and 8 trait points sit in reserve. There are 595,100 killing value on hand, and the combat rating is 8-star late stage, nearly 9-star. That escalated quickly. Then I go shopping. The skill section holds exactly 2 categories, light-based and dark-based. The dark ones are grayed out, because I have no dark attribute to my name. Light it is, since extra skills never hurt. Light skills also come loaded with special effects, which is to say they are excellent for showing off. Every one of them costs 5,000 killing value. Light Shield, perfected, forms a unique protective barrier against attacks. Holy Light Illumination, perfected, controls holy light to light up the world with maximum aura enhancement. Holy Light Technique, perfected, heals with holy power. Purification Spell, perfected, clears most negative statuses. Holy Strike, perfected, condenses a beam of energy to hit enemies. Holy Judgment, perfected, judges evil in the name of light, and summons a phantom of the judgment chamber to do it. Of the lot, Holy Light Illumination and Holy Light Technique are the ones I actually wanted. The rest are bonuses. With the skills settled, I go looking through the special items. Purifying Water, 1 liter water carrying holy power that purifies dark forces. 500 killing value. Angel's Blood, 1 bowl, containing pure holy power, 2,000. Heart of Light, 1 piece, a crystal of light power that enhances light power and purifies dark auras, 5,000. I take all 3, because with that much help behind it, the blood key should erode considerably faster. There is a real chance I finish the plunder before I enter the next space, after which I will be a man who can open the gates of hell whenever the mood takes him. Weapons next. To this day I do not own a handy one, and have been fighting purely on abilities. That has not been a problem yet. A man destined to walk into hell without a weapon is handing away an advantage though. As for the laser saber I exchanged for early on, the less said the better. I expected it to serve across several sessions. My strength outgrew it after a handful of uses, and it has been collecting dust ever since. Conveniently, this space ran on a magical background, so the weapon list is worth reading. The Sword of Judgment, enhanced version, an angel's sword forged entirely from light stone and packed with light energy. It carries the trait Indestructible at 100,000 killing value. That will hold me a good while. I would honestly have preferred a saber, but angels apparently only play with swords and spears. Between the two I take the sword, since both are short weapons and I handle them easily enough. I am lining up the next exchange when the space shakes and floods red. Red light. My pupils shrink, because I know what this is. The system announces that the number of star-level evolvers has passed 100,000. A universal achievement has unlocked, and a welfare gift package is being distributed. One for everybody worth 10 free attribute points and 1,000 killing value. What shocks me is not the contents. In my past life, this package did not unlock until after the 5th session ended. It has arrived a full session early, which is almost certainly my doing. I have gutted the monster population in every world I entered. In the vampire world, I came close to erasing the race outright. A great many survivors who should have died are still breathing and still getting stronger. It stands to reason that 100,000 of them have pushed a single attribute past 30. Unlocking early makes Korea's foundation sturdier anyway. This is only the first, with packages waiting at 100,000 2-star evolvers and 100,000 3-star evolvers, each paying more than the last. A problem for later. A large red package appears in the void in front of me and asks whether I want to open it. I do, and it pays free attributes plus 10 and killing value plus 1,000, exactly as expected. That gives me 18 free attribute points, which I'd bank rather than spend. Then I go back to hunting through the list. Against whatever the next space throws at me, the Sword of Judgment plus my light abilities will cope. What needs attention is the Mechanical Army, indispensable if I want to farm points at scale in the 5th session. Right now it is far too weak to handle what is coming. I could always just throw the robots at things like mushroom heads. That wastes an enormous number of cards though. After some searching, I spend everything left on 2 entries. Wild Mithril Ore runs 10,000 points per ton. Ore Refining Liquid, which instantly refines about 11 pounds of special ore, runs 100 points per drop. With that done, I leave the settlement space. In the real world, evolvers come back one after another with their faces lit up. The internet turns lively again. Thanks to the universal package, every surviving evolver picked up at least a dozen points of attribute improvement. Dumping all of it into a single attribute produces a very respectable jump. Reality shifts under that wave, and nowhere faster than in the privileged families. In the study of the Bay family in Yongsan City, a short, stout old man with half-white hair sits at a desk writing. Behind him, mounted in the hollow at the center of the bookcase, hangs a rosewood-framed scroll bearing 4 characters in a distinctive hand. They say that the highest excellence is like water. The old man is Bei Yakseong, head of the Bei family. A knock comes at the study door and he answers without lifting his brush. A thin man in a butler's uniform hurries in and reports that the new ranking list is out. The person at the top has taken an SSS rating again. Bei Yakseong's brush pauses, then resumes. Without raising his head, he asks whether they have identified the man. The butler lowers his head and answers that they have not. The higher-ups treat this area as extremely sensitive. With that person from the Zhou family in charge, it will take time. Some clues have surfaced, though, and await confirmation. Bei Yakseong hears him out and sets the brush aside, whether he was finished or not. He tells him to keep pressing the higher-ups, then asks about the families he was told to contact. The butler says they have all been contacted and are presumably applying pressure already. Bei Yakseong nods. With that many families pushing, he does not believe the man from the Zhou family can hold the line. Someone taking SSS ratings again and again has something fishy about him. If the Bei family is the one to uncover it, the Bei family becomes the #1 family in Korea. Then he asks how the Esper squad is coming along. The butler answers truthfully that progress is poor. Most mature evolvers have been absorbed by the 816 Bureau and the various city officials. That leaves few for anyone else, and the ones available bring loyalty questions with them. The Espers the family raises in-house have not stepped into the star level and cannot be deployed. Bei Yakseong's face darkens as he asks what the problem is, given it has been 10 days. The butler looks helpless and says it comes back to evolution crystals. Control is strict right now and supply is limited, so they have been rationing what they obtained earlier. On top of that, a beginner has a daily absorption ceiling. It will be several more days before any of them reach the star level. Bei Yakseong accepts that it cannot be hurried. He says he will find a way on the crystals himself. He tells the butler to put his main energy into the pressure campaign. He needs results as soon as possible. In Haesong City, in the large flat apartment I bought with cash, a subordinate reports to President Zhou. There is nobody here. By the dust, nobody has lived in the place for at least 10 days. Zhou Gaoan, head of the Zhou family, stands in the hall with a black expression. The anger climbs in his eyes. He calls them trash for failing to notice the man had already moved out. Then he orders them to keep searching. He gives them 3 days, then cuts himself off and demands an exact location by noon tomorrow instead. His son Tae's death has to be avenged. He takes a deep breath and turns to a middle-aged man in casual clothes behind him. He tells Master Min that a slight complication has come up, and that he must trouble him to stay 2 more days. He adds that the cost is not an issue. Master Min had been frowning up to that last sentence, and his brow smooths out immediately. He chuckles that it is no matter at all. As it happens, he can take in the scenery here in Haesong City. In the military department's conference room, Director Zhou delivers his report on the recent gains with practiced ease, then hands the floor to Elder Shim. Elder Shim tells him it was not bad. Knowing the situation in advance and running targeted training clearly worked, and although the killing value haul fell short of ideal, there were almost no casualties, which is enough. Director Zhou nods and waits. Elder Shim sets that aside and asks whether everyone still remembers the Doomsday Society. Odd looks go around the table, along with a handful of facts. The Doomsday Society was the cult preaching the coming of the apocalypse. It was wiped out 3 months ago, and the man who led that raid killed its leader on the spot. Nobody understands why a dead organization is back on the agenda. Elder Shim raises a hand for quiet, and says he would not bring a simple comeback into this room. Their investigation shows the branch they destroyed was one limb of something larger, an organization calling itself the Three Gods Society. It surfaced only in the last few days, and he cannot rule out other nations standing behind it. The room goes heavy. Everyone knows what those words mean from a man in Elder Shim's chair. If he says it in the open, the shadows behind it are already confirmed, and the silence before that says the rest. Even with national borders cutting the Three Gods Society off from whoever seeded it, nobody lets a thing like that make itself at home in their own house. Elder Shim gives them the worse half. The Three Gods Society has been quietly contacting superpowered individuals, and a fair number have already signed on. An old man in uniform with a temper like a lit fuse offers to take troops and clear out their strongholds. He wiped them out once and can do it again, and his aura leaks across the table as he says it. Elder Shim shakes his head. They have a little information, not much, since the Three Gods Society hid well enough that without the borders it would still be invisible. All they hold is that its leader calls himself the left hand of God, and the rest is for the rune to work out. The table goes quiet, because nobody can see a first step. A middle-aged officer finally proposes the old method. Plant a superpowered individual as an undercover agent, since the Three Gods Society is recruiting superpowered people anyway. He wants the organizational structure first, especially the high level, plus tighter monitoring and guidance of superpowered individuals so nobody else gets swayed. As for whose department supplies the candidate, he stops there. There are too many factions in that room, and the job is a hot coal that guarantees nothing and costs nothing to drop. Merit in an apocalypse is a joke nobody laughs at, so nobody volunteers. Elder Shim looks at them with something close to resignation, because he expected this and because a team that size never moves. The 816 Bureau exists, so he still has someone to send. He tells Director Joe to arrange it and to go see young Yuan first, and ask whether he has foreseen anything. Director Joe agrees at once. Elder Shim closes by saying he will not force the unwilling, and asks one thing only, that every need Director Joe brings be met unconditionally. In a war against the unknown, every man at that table is part of one defense line, and only together do they hold this land to a real dawn. Then he turns the meeting to the monsters. I am walking my new base with Spring Orchid while all that happens. The mainframe was up when I entered the space, and 4 days later the whole thing is finished and I am satisfied with it, which is what a few thousand tireless machines buy you. The production lines are built and not yet running. I hand over the mithril ore, the ore refining liquid, and the golden battle armor for research, because I want a batch of new T-800s soon to see what the quality looks like. Then I take Winter Plum up in a modified helicopter and fly toward the monsters that are almost due. I ask the higher-ups for this helicopter. Every document is in order, it lifts off anywhere at any hour, and the permissions keep the air defense system off it. The base has been over it too, so its power, its armor, and its firepower sit past anything real-world technology matches. 10 minutes of flying puts us down in a guarded area at the foot of a mountain, where Autumn Chrysanthemum has waited a long time with a line of guards behind her. They are not military department men. Every one of them is a T-800 wearing implanted bionic skin. I had her settle this with the higher-ups a while back, that from now on I guard this spatial rift. They agreed happily, since one less source of pressure is pure profit, and asked only for some robots to study later. I agreed, planning to leak something outdated, since my T-800s have gone through more versions than I bother counting. Without the base system, nobody builds a mechanical army off a few samples. It is not contempt for their research teams, only that not one person on them can fight, and the technical bottlenecks will not fall in a year or two. Autumn Chrysanthemum comes at me the moment I step off the helicopter, hips swaying, telling me she missed me to death. Her charm is sharper every time I see her, which means her Gumiho ambitions are getting closer. My mouth twitches at the performance. She is a robot without a scrap of the hardware for any of it, and she is still testing my resolve. Who exactly is supposed to resist that? I put a hand flat on her face and push her away, then ask how things stand here. She complains that I am heartless before turning serious. The spatial rift sits at the top of the mountain, and they have rushed up a transport chute running from it down to the base of the slope, so material moves fast. She produces a palm-sized pink thing shaped like a phone, a custom map navigator showing a green dot and a pink dot, and asks whether I like the color. I look at that color and have nothing to say. One glance at the location tells me all I need, so I tell her to keep it. She protests that the terrain is complicated and the toxic miasma makes it easy to get lost, and I tell her I am not going through the forest. She asks how I plan to reach the top, and I tell her I will fly. My holy wings spread as I say it. I grab Winter Plum and take off while Autumn Chrysanthemum is still stunned, and she shouts up after us that she wants to come too. My body dips once before I settle into the wing beat and cut across the night sky toward the peak. A few seconds later, I land. Mechanical soldiers stand guard on one side of the summit and make no aggressive move at the side of me. On the other side, a conveyor belt runs down to the foot of the mountain, built by Spring Orchid and the others before I entered the space, always meant for the mechanical army. Not far ahead, the spatial rift turns slowly, a black hole swallowing everything near its edge, and I scan the area and step straight in. One step and the world changes. Behind me sits the rift back to reality. In front of me, a dense mechanical army stands on a long bridge, with another rift at the far end opening into the mechanical world and a pitch-black abyss on both sides. This place is like the zombie canyon. No tricks, nothing but a head-on road. In my previous life, the military struggled to break in here and finally blew the bridge for temporary safety. Temporary because the mechanical army formed a bridge out of its own bodies to patch the gap, and because some mysterious force restored the span whole once the space closed. They found their answer anyway, grinding the machines down and blowing it again, since blowing it is cheaper than repairing it. On that tactic alone, they kept the mechanical army from advancing a single step. I cannot afford to be that wasteful. What stands on that bridge is not an army of robots to me, it is raw material, a field of semi-finished products I can recycle straight into basic troops. Guard this rift properly and I own a production line that refills itself. Swallow this army of 300,000 and my base finally runs at full capacity. They spot me the instant I appear, scanning me one by one, and the infrared targeting locks on in a blink. One flat voice announces that the human dies, and the front rank opens fire without giving me a breath. Countless rounds forming a metal storm. I've spent this whole apocalypse making the metal storms, so standing on this end of one takes a second to adjust to. With a thought, I open a dimensional space and put the exit down in the abyss beside the bridge. Then I hesitate, weighing which method preserves the most of my own army. That is right, my army. They simply have not been told yet. I step out of the bridge space entirely. 3 minutes later, I come back into a second wave, holding the fire off with a dimensional space, while air control pins a few dozen robots and throws them out through the exit. Outside the rift in reality, a large mechanical army force is deployed under Winter Plum's full management. Every robot that comes through is subdued on landing, its energy source pulled and set aside, its body loaded onto the conveyor. That energy source is not the nuclear battery the Killing Space hands out. It is an evolution crystal, which is the whole reason I want this army, since nothing accelerates my base's research into converting evolution crystals like 300,000 working examples. So I keep pitching robots off the bridge, a few dozen at a time so the crew outside can digest them. Once the process units reach a certain count, trucks haul them back to base for recycling. Containment, disassembly, transport, recycling, all of it one continuous line. The process eats time, but every piece of it is mine, so if it takes time, it takes time. Nobody spots any of this from orbit either, since I had the T-1000 rewrite the satellite footage long ago. By the next morning, the leader of the mechanical army shows itself, and it is a T-1000, exactly as I expected. Its traits match every other one I have read, so I freeze it, recycle it, and go back to work. It is noon on the second day before the bridge is cleared. With nothing left for me there, I ride back with the transport team and fall asleep the moment my head touches the pillow. I wake in the evening, eat something, and take Winter Plum down to a laboratory where a very particular is that it is built out of mithril. I came for the mithril test results, and while I am here, to test my holy blessing, the ability I have looked forward to most. The base system welcomes me to Laboratory 1, and I ask for the results. The mithril's resistance to physical impact falls far below the previous alloys, but its energy defense far exceeds all of them. Electrical energy run through it comes out weakened by a full 30%. Its transmission speed for energy is 3 times faster than anything before, with negligible loss along the way. Strangest of all, the mithril holds a special energy of its own, and weapons made from it can break through biological aura, which the base is still investigating. I nod through it, since until now I only knew mithril had high magic resistance and fast transmission, with no hard numbers attached. Then I ask about the machine itself. It is built primarily from meteoric iron, supplemented with alloys in mithril, and powered by a level 3 evolution crystal. Analysis puts that crystal's driving force at the equal of 1 nuclear battery, and no weapons are fitted yet. I tell the base to prepare the data recording and log every change through the process. I place my hand on the robot and golden light kindles under my palm, spreading from the contact point until it covers the whole body. Holy blessing. I pull back and feel it out, and my eyes narrow because that cost about 1/30th of my energy, and I could clearly keep pouring. Experiments go step by step, so first I want the minimum. The robot in front of me has changed completely, its silver black metal skeleton now solid gold from head to foot, as though somebody dipped it in lacquer. I have to admit it. Whatever else Holy Blessing does, it looks incredible. Half an hour of testing brings the conclusions in heavy. Its resistance to energy has gone from 30% to 50%, and its physical resistance is flatly doubled. It has gained self-repair, correcting deformation within seconds, and broken pieces reconnect fast when set together, deep enough to rejoin the internal pipelines. How it manages that cannot be analyzed yet and needs more research. Every strike now carries holy power. The only real drawback is consumption, since one series of operations burned a tenth of the store, with limb repair costing the most, then attacks, then deformation recovery. That sits inside my expectations. Holy Blessing imbues an object with holy power the object does not generate, so the more it spends the less it holds, and the data projects a top-up every 10 days under normal use. After that, I run the experiment the other way, to find how much an item can hold and how far the endurance stretches. By dawn, I have a detailed picture. Holy Blessing has no upper limit and takes any amount I push in. At my full output, it supports a year of normal use, though battle burns it fast, and once it drops to a critical value, the blessing fails and the object goes ordinary again. The best part is that the robot's own consciousness controls it. How much holy power rides each attack, whether to bless at all of it answers to its own judgment. It can even shape the holy power into a shield or unfold it into wings and fly. That works less like an enchantment and more like lending someone energy, which surprised me. Afterward, I sit down with the base system to develop new robots, though what really happens is that I make suggestions and the base implements them. I have run the mechanical army long enough to see the gaps, that they cannot fly and their attack methods are singular. I do not need every unit carrying everything, but I do need distinct types for distinct enemies. A private plane sets down at the Haesong City airport, and a group walks off it led by a sullen-faced Joe Gowon. A middle-aged man in a press suit, hair combed flat, hurries over and greets him as President Joe. Joe Gowon only nods, then asks straight out whether he is Wang Yujie of the Haesong branch and whether they have the location. Wang Yujie is thrown for a second, since every piece of flattery he prepared has been shoved off the table. He is an old hand and recovers fast, reporting that the target was last seen entering a military base in Haesong City and has not come out, so he must still be inside. Joe Gowon is delighted, says the matter was handled well, and orders him to take him to that base, because he is finally about to catch this rat. The boy must have imagined that crossing the city would hide him, when in Korea there is nobody the Joe family cannot find. Hiding inside the military department does surprise him, though only for a moment before he decides the military cannot protect anyone from him. Then Wang Yujie's expression turns difficult, and he explains the small problem. The base's leadership team changed 10 days ago and he cannot reach the new leadership, so getting inside needs Joe Gowon's connections and someone higher up to bridge it. Joe Gowon frowns at the trouble, but a military base is a military base. He has money and power, and his network sits in Yongsan City, not out here, where he counts for little. So he calls his brother-in-law, introduces himself as Little Joe, explains where he is, and asks for a number, since the director Joe apparently knows this area well. With that number he dials again, and the phone rings twice before it is answered. He tells Director Joe the Elder Mang introduced him, that he is in Haesong City, and that he only wants to pay his respects to the new leadership and discuss cooperation. Hearing that Director Joe is coming too, he asks the time, is told noon, and says he will wait. He hangs up with a cold smile because nobody stops the man Joe Gowon has decided to take, the military department included. Autumn Chrysanthemum interrupts my experiment to tell me Director Joe of the 816 Bureau wants to visit. He called back to say he has to bring one more person, an introduction from above he cannot refuse, and wants to know what we think. I tell her he can bring whoever he likes, and that she does not need to run trivia past me, only to notify me when they arrive. She says she will answer him. I go back to the experimental robot, frowning at it, and muttering that something is still missing. Noon. Director Joe steps off the plane into a welcoming party headed by Joe Gowon, who introduces himself as Joe Gowon of Joe Group, and mentions that Elder Mang is his brother-in-law. That second half is the whole purpose of the sentence. There is no particular respect in his tone. Only one businessman talking to another with a little display worked in, because at his level, Director Joe is not somebody to grovel to. A civil amount of face and no offense given is enough. Director Joe is not surprised, having read the man's background already, so he shakes hands, trades the minimum pleasantries, and gets into a car for the base. Joe Gowon fishes the whole drive, asking what to watch out for with the new leader, how old he is, whether he has preferences. Director Joe only repeats that he will know when he sees him. Without Yuan's permission, he does not dare reveal a thing, and if that person gets upset, there is nothing he can do about it. Even Autumn Chrysanthemum, who works under him as liaison, is more than he can handle. When she was first assigned as liaison, the two of them clashed, and she dominated him start to finish, in a plain brawl with no weapons and no powers. A loss is a loss, and he has never understood how the gap between two people gets that wide, unless there is some technique or exploit behind it. because otherwise none of it adds up. The rest of the drive passes in silence, and soon they are working through the checkpoints on the outskirts. Jo Gaewon remarks that the security here is truly strict, having passed layer after layer of it, and the whole procession leaves him respectful of whoever runs the place. Better not to offend a figure with that much real power, because if the man detains you, there is nowhere to take a complaint. The car stops in the parking lot, and when Jo Gaewon climbs out, he sees a woman in a red hanbok. Beautiful past belief. Even a veteran like him is stunned for a beat, though club years and his age bring him back fast, leaving only a trace of amazement. Then comes the confusion because a woman dressed like that has no business inside a military base, so her identity is not simple. He decides she must be the new leader's daughter, since only a doting father lets her walk a base dressed that way. He wonders what a man does in a past life to earn a daughter like that, and thinks that if Jo Tae were alive, the two would have matched perfectly. The thought of Jo Tae lands hard, and his face darkens. The woman is Autumn Chrysanthemum, of course. Her idol is the Gumiho, so her everyday clothes lean old-fashioned, and I do not mind, since my base is not a real military base and carries none of those restrictions. She can wear whatever she likes. Having someone rest my eyes with a different outfit every day suits me, and the research says looking at beautiful women lifts a man's body and mind and speeds his blood flow. Call it a health regimen with longevity thrown in. When there is nothing else to do, a man may as well look. She walks over with her hips swaying, calling out that Director Joe has come at last, that it has been a long time, and that he has gotten even better looking. His composure falls apart at once. He manages that he is here, that it has been a long time, laughs twice too many times, and looks anywhere but at her. Jo Gaewon's cheek twitches, because a moment ago the man was cold-faced and steady, and now he is a grinning oaf. Experience answers the question fast enough. Director Joe is interested in her, which makes sense. One young and highly placed and the other beautiful with a background. Quite a match. And if his own capability in that area were still what it was, he would be interested himself. Autumn Chrysanthemum sizes up the group, takes an extra look at the middle-aged man in casual clothes, then asks Director Joe which one is the person he mentioned. She teases him that he said one and brought three. Director Joe hurries to explain that the other two are bodyguards who came along. Jo Gaewon steps forward with his hand out, introduces himself as Jo Gaewon of Jo Group, says the two behind him are his bodyguards, and tells her it is very nice to meet her. She frowns at the name. Jo Gaewon of Jo Group is the father of the Jo Tae her master killed, and now he has come knocking on the door himself. That is interesting enough that she connects to the base's wireless network, pulls his photograph from the database and confirms it. In the same instant, she contacts Winterplum and lays out the situation. Inside the base, Winterplum interrupts my research to say the man Director Joe brought is Jo Gaewon of Jo Group. She asks whether I want to see him. I answer that of course I will, since he is already here, and then the name catches up, and I ask her to say it again. Jo Gaewon, Jo Tae's father. She confirms it and says Autumn Chrysanthemum already matched the database photograph. My expression goes strange while I turn it over, wondering why he came alongside Director Joe, and whether this is an apology or a request to die. When she asks again, I tell her to bring him because I want to see what kind of trick he plans to pull. Out on the plaza, Autumn Chrysanthemum gets her answer and loses every scrap of desire to shake his hand. She looks him over, points at Director Joe and tells him his kidneys have a problem. His vitality measures 1/30th of that man's, and he should get treatment soon. Jo Gaewon's expression stiffens, and his cheek twitches. He grumbles inwardly that there is no need to hit a man in the face that directly. Comparing a 50-year-old to a hot-blooded man in his 20s proves nothing, since everybody was young once. In his own day, he was no worse than the man beside him, who rose on a surname. He cannot take that out on a woman, though, especially one he takes for a base bigwig's daughter. He swallows it, forces an awkward smile, and withdraws his hand, saying an old man naturally cannot compare with a young one, and that he did not expect her to be skilled in medicine. He still needs a favor from the new leader, so he endures. Just then, Winterplum's reply reaches her, and she stops dawdling and tells them to come along, because her boss is waiting. She turns toward the reception building, and Director Joe answers and follows. Jo Gaewon's eyes go odd, because he suspects he misheard. That word should have been father, and boss makes no sense from a daughter, unless the new leader has a taste for dress-up games. He follows anyway, and while he walks, Master Min leans in and tells him quietly that something is not right with this base. Jo Gaewon's face turns serious and he asks what Master Min noticed. Master Min says he has been watching the guards in the distance, and they have not moved at all, which is not normal. Jo Gaewon chuckles that he thought it was something serious, and tells him he is overthinking since sentries have standing orders against shifting around. Master Min presses, asking what he makes of guards showing not the slightest tremor, not even a chest rising with a breath. Jo Gaewon's face changes and he asks whether that is true. Master Min admits the distance makes it hard to see clearly, only that they seem off. Joe Gowan goes quiet for 2 seconds, then says there is no need to overthink it. They came to visit and not to fight, and those guards are none of their business. Master Min nods and says nothing more. The group follows Autumn Chrysanthemum the rest of the way, and she knocks, announces that she has brought them, and I tell them to come in. I am waiting inside with my head down, stroking little Silver. She is completely silver from nose to tail, and nobody who looks at her can name the breed. Autumn Chrysanthemum announces the guests, and Director Joe speaks up quickly behind her, greeting me as Mr. Yu, saying he has come with something to ask, and apologizing for the disturbance. Every word is placed by a man with no intention of offending me. Joe Gowan fixes on me the instant he clears the doorway, and I watch the shock land. Even from my profile, he can tell the new leader is no older than 30, and that rewrites his earlier guess. The woman outside cannot be a daughter, so she is most likely a lover, which in his reading means the man keeps something exquisite on base and plays hard. Then a flicker of doubt crosses his face, some sense that he has seen me somewhere, and he does not chase it. Director Joe has already greeted me, so he cannot stay silent. He calls me leader, gives his name, says he came with Director Joe, that this is his first visit, and that he brought some local specialties, then glances at the bodyguard behind him. The man carries a box of liquor forward, sets it down and opens it, and gold light catches every eye in the room, because it is a full box of gold bars. Director Joe's mouth twitches at the phrase local specialty, since he would like to know whose hometown produces gold bars. It is blatant bribery, but I am not a public official, and neither is the Joe family, and he is not the enforcement team. A willing giver and a willing taker are nothing to do with him, so he settles in to watch the show. I do not even look at the gold. Head still down, I ask him to tell me what he wants from me. He laughs and says, nothing gets past the leader. He came to ask for a person, a young man named Yu On, who owes him money and fled here to avoid paying. He leaves the rest unsaid, expecting me to fill in the shape of it. Beside him, Director Joe's face changes color. I watch him realize exactly whose name just came out of that mouth. Then he moves to speak and I hold him still. He cannot part his lips, let alone make a sound, and he knows on the spot whose doing it is. I ask Joe Gowan how it is that I do not know I owe him money. He starts to say he is not talking about me, that he means that you, and then his voice climbs toward a shout as I raise my head and look at him without expression. He finishes the sentence by naming me. That face has been replayed in his head 1,000 times over the past weeks, and he would never mistake it. I tell him flatly that I advise him to behave, since it seems he has not been listening. Seeing his enemy in front of him fills him with rage instead. He insists it is impossible, that an ordinary person could not suddenly own this place, that not even an ability user could manage it. Then something else occurs to him, and he rounds on Director Joe, accusing him of plotting the whole thing, of being my man. Director Joe can only roll his eyes, since Joe Gowan made the phone call himself, and immobilized he cannot even say so. That silence convinces Joe Gowan he was right, and he laughs wildly at me, calling it my setup and my trap, and good tactics, then asks whether I really think I have him. With intelligence like that, how did this man ever found Joe Group? He twists toward the middle-aged man in casual clothes and hands the matter to Master Min. The reward he mentioned earlier is doubled, then tripled, with one requirement only, that he wants to kill me with his own hands. Master Min's eyes light up and he laughs until they narrow to slits, saying that since President Joe has spoken, there is naturally no problem. He steps forward and plants himself in front of his employer. Golden light turns in my eyes as I look him over. I release my hold on Director Joe at the same time, since the guest is his, and I want to see what he does. The panel names him Min Young Cheng and rates him 2-star late stage, with 3 plunderable traits under it. 100 venom poison body in blue. A physique that absorbs venom insects into the body and lets them coexist with it. Venom insect control in purple, which lets him command venom insects within 100 yards and speak with them. Venom insect mastery in blue. Deep familiarity with the habits of every kind of venom insect, backed by long experience raising venom poisons. A poison player. No wonder he is this confident, and what a shame that the man across from him is immune to every drop of it. The name Min Young Chang is familiar in a way I cannot place, and I frown, hunting for whether he was somebody famous in my previous life. Director Joe is still staring at the scene when the restraint drops off him. He looks at me by reflex and gets a flat stare back, which chills him enough to move, because it is his life being asked for and he knows it. He steps forward and blocks Master Min, though his eyes go past into Joe Gowan, and he asks coldly whether the man knows what he is doing. Joe Gowan says he knows perfectly well that this person killed his son, his only son, and demands to know what Director Joe would call that. He adds that this is between the two of them, that Director Joe represents the higher-ups and he has no wish to make an enemy of him, and advises him to stand aside. The alternative he leaves hanging. Shock shows in Director Joe's eyes at the word son, because he assumed a feud over interests that his mediation could settle, and a murdered son is not a thing anyone mediates. He is nobody's lubricant. He glances at me, grinds his teeth, and tells Joe Gowan that whatever the grudge is, this person cannot be touched. Small bolts of lightning crawl over him as he says it. The lightning barely starts before his face goes white. He sways, retreats 2 steps and almost goes down, then rounds on Master Min and asks whether the man poisoned him. Master Min grins and tells him to be glad his identity saved him, since it is only a paralytic and wears off in an hour at most. Then he ignores him entirely and turns to me, telling me to stop pretending that he has absolute confidence in his poison and assumes I am in the same condition. He steps aside and tells Joe Gowan he has not failed his trust and that the man can collect me now. Joe Gowan laughs and calls him worthy of the name, then orders his men to grab the kid, announcing that he means to break 3 of my legs first. His eyes on me are nothing but vicious. He is already watching me beg in his hands, wanting to die and not allowed to. The black-clad bodyguard who carried the liquor steps out and closes on me fast, and the next second he is struck by a force he never sees and flies backward into Master Min. Master Min's face sinks and he puts a hand up to block, but the instant they touch his expression changes and he stamps his foot and slides aside. The bodyguard grazes past him, hits the far wall hard and drops, alive or otherwise unclear. Master Min flexes a stinging wrist, aware a slower reaction would have sent him flying too, then looks at me darkly and asks why his poison has no hold on me. I tell him his poison is very good, and that unfortunately I am immune to all poisons. His pupils contract, because 70% of his strength lives in those poisons, and a man whose poisons do nothing is mostly crippled. Then he recovers and sneers that no such physique exists in this world, and that if one did it would only prove the poison was not strong enough. I am too lazy to trade words with him. With a thought he is restrained where he stands, and Joe Gowan goes still along with him. I tell Joe Gowan calmly that I gave him a road to live on in this world, and he refused it, so he can go keep his son company. I am ready to end him there, and then I think it through properly. The Joe family is powerful, and killing Joe Gowan only means another Joe Gowan rises in his place. Better to settle the whole thing in one stroke. I put a mind edict on him and release the restraint, then tell him there is nothing here for him. He is to go back and dissolve the Joe family, find a way to eliminate every direct descendant, then turn himself in and take his own life once he is inside the prison. Master Min's understanding of the world caves in, because no sane man agrees to a request like that. A second later he is struck dumb anyway, because Joe Gowan answers yes, master, then turns and walks out without a glance for him or for Director Joe. His face is nothing but disbelief. He is still asking what happened to the murdered son from a minute ago, when he remembers Joe Gowan telling him this opponent can control other people's minds. Cold sweat pours off him as he works out that Joe Gowan has already been taken, and he stares at me in horror. Not far away, Director Joe wears the same expression, clearly praying I do not do the same to him. Both of them are running the same calculation, and only one of them will like the answer. I settle Joe Gowan like a chore, and turn back to Master Min. And by then the name has surfaced. Min Yong Cheng, a descendant of Myo Mountain, the poison master of his generation. In my previous life, a man called the Heavenly Eye Taoist built a civilian power ranking listing the 100 strongest in Korea, and Min Yong Cheng sat on it as the Poison King. That name pulls up my own curiosity, because I never worked out how he knew so much about everyone, down to their exact strength. I even had Winter Plum investigate him, and she turned up nothing, presumably because he has not surfaced yet, and I cannot remember whether he emerged in the 6th iteration or the 7th. Setting that aside, under Min Young Chang's horrified stare, I stack several mind edicts on him, and the horror softens into worship. He bows and calls me master. I ignore him and turn to Director Joe, asking whether I can trust him. He swallows at my calm look and manages a difficult nod, with a body still weak and limp, telling me he is absolutely trustworthy. He swears he will never reveal what happened here, not even to his own father. He has no choice, since the alternative is standing where Min Young Chang stands, and he wants no part of that. The man in front of him is too terrifying, and he had believed reaching 3-star would narrow the gap, only for reality to stay exactly as cruel. I smile and tell him it would not matter much if he did talk. My strength already gives me the capital to act as I please, and even the higher-ups cannot do a thing about me, so I no longer need to curry favor or care what anyone thinks. He insists again that he really will not say anything, and he means it, because he cannot afford to provoke me. I nod and tell Min Young Chang to undo his poison. Min Young Chang answers yes, stands and feeds him a pill, and inside 2 minutes Director Joe can stand, still numb and weak but upright. He looks at Min Young Chang waiting obediently at my side, then back at me, with something complicated on his face, and lets out a quiet breath at having dodged the bullet. I tell him to say why he came. He steadies himself and says there are a few matters he would like my opinion on, and I tell him to list them. First, whether I have predicted the next monsters and when I will announce it. That question was expected, so I tell him not yet, that I need one more day, and I give him the rule outright so he never has to ask again. This precognitive ability only reaches me 7 days before the space opens. He nods and says they will organize a meeting then, and that I can connect at any point. I tell him to continue. The second thing, he says, is whether I have heard of the Three Gods Society. I answer with surprise that he knows about it, and he asks me to elaborate. I raise an eyebrow and turn to Min Yongsheng standing guard nearby, asking whether he has joined the Three Gods Society. The Poison King is one of the 9 kings under the 3 gods, and I have no idea whether he signed on this early. Director Joe's head snaps around, asking whether Min Yongchang is one of theirs, unable to believe a coincidence that size. Min Yongchang is surprised I know about the contact, but answers truthfully that he received an invitation and has not officially joined. I frown, because the timeline is running earlier than I remembered. Director Joe jumps on it and asks how they invited him, hoping an invitation route can be traced into an infiltration. Min Yongchang lowers his head and says it was through dreams. That lands on both of us. I did not know that part either, since being reborn does not make me omniscient, and what I know is what was famous in my last life. The 3 gods of the 3 Gods Society, for instance, all sat inside the top 20 of the Heavenly Eye ranking. Min Yongchang lays out the rest honestly. Every time he sleeps, he dreams of a particular space shaped like a meeting room, pitch black around its edges, with a large round table at the center, and 6 figures seated at it. They invite him to join them and offer him a mountain of rare treasures to raise his strength quickly. Director Joe and I both listen without a word, and we come away with a little understanding of the 3 Gods Society. What interests me most is the dream invitation, since that should be the method of the dream god Roger, one of the 3 gods. Interesting. Director Joe asks whether he knows the identities of the 6. Min Yongchang shakes his head, saying he asked too and was told he would know once he had fully joined. Asked about conditions for joining, he says there are none, at least not for him. Director Joe's frown deepens, because a society that meets inside dreams, sets no conditions and has no known meeting point leaves nowhere to plant a man. Even if he managed it, an undercover agent is worth nothing against someone who owns your dreams. He turns to me and says that since I asked the question, I must know something, and he asks me to share it. I smile and tell him, of course. Then tell Autumn Chrysanthemum to write up a list of materials the base needs and hand it to Director Joe to take away. Want information? Simple. Bring enough and I will tell them everything I know. Autumn Chrysanthemum, silent in her corner until now, agrees at once. Director Joe's expression stiffens because he forgot this part, though he came prepared to be fleeced and even warned Elder Shim in advance. Intelligence on the 3 Gods Society offsets whatever the materials cost, and best of all, what I am asking for is public property, so spending it does not hurt him. He tells me to speak. I pull up the rankings old summary, add what I know, and lay it out. The 3 Gods Society has 3 people at its core, and because their strength resembles that of certain deities, they call themselves the Agents of Gods, which is where the name comes from. The 3 gods are the War God, Hong Muyal, the Dream God, Roger, and the Wisdom God, Eva. Hong Muyal wields the power of light, close to an angel's ability. Roger controls and dominates dreams. Eva possesses precognition. Director Joe cannot help asking whether that is precognition of the same kind as mine. My expression stiffens, and I answer awkwardly that it is more or less that, and that precognitive abilities are not all built the same. He says he sees, and falls silent. Below the 3 gods, I tell him, sit the 9 kings, who carry out missions and expand the organization's influence inside the framework the 3 gods lay down. As for which 9 kings exist, what their strengths are and what they want, I do not know yet, and that is not a lie, since all I ever had were code names. The 3 gods were top ranked on the combat power list in my previous life, which is why they stuck. Past the 30th slot, honestly, who remembers anybody? Even the Poison King was only exposed as one of the 9 kings when experts hunted him down late in my last life, and that hunt is what drew Hong Muyal into the open. Director Joe says he sees, disappointed and content in the same breath. The left hand of God the higher-ups know about is almost certainly Hong Muyal, and beyond that name they have nothing. So a mysterious man knowing this much makes the materials worth spending. Then he thinks it through. Ordinary undercover agents cannot get inside the 3 God Society since dream intrusion and mind control alone kill the plan before it starts. Unless... His eyes light up and he glances at Min Yongchang, then turns back and asks whether he may discuss something with me. I tell him to speak, and he asks to borrow Min Yongchang for a while and let him join the 3 God Society to feed them intelligence. Their own people cannot manage it. Min Yongchang already holds an invitation, and with my peculiar methods behind him, loyalty is not a concern. At worst, Director Joe applies to Elder Shim for a larger budget. I ask whether he means sending Min Young Chang undercover, and the old joke floats up, the one about the agent begging his handlers to close the net before he ends up running the syndicate himself. Min Young Chang is a future king, and a few more promotions would leave him giving the orders. Director Joe certainly knows how to scheme. I am not refusing, since I want more on the Three God Society myself, and this costs me a nod, so I may as well go with the current. Benefits are still indispensable, so I tell him he can exchange materials for important intelligence from now on, priced by its value. He nods calmly, having expected it, and asks whether there is anything else. He hesitates before the last one, then says some aristocratic families at the top have been pressuring Elder Shim and that they want to meet me. My eyes narrow. I tell him meeting me is surely not all they have in mind, and I look at him until he explains that the families want to consult on how to obtain high ratings. Inwardly, he is swearing off message running for good, since whoever wants to come here can come on their own feet. He is also cursing the families as fools with air where their brains should be. He just experienced my restraint personally, tried to break it a little, and did not budge an inch. There was a time he could touch my back, and a single finger sent him flying. Today, a glance handled him, so it would be a miracle if I did not pull a high evaluation. I do not hear one word of that grumbling, and I do not need to. Some people are simply getting greedy. I chuckle at the word method, then tell him to wait 2 more days and have Elder Shim pass it along. He is to tell them to think carefully about the consequences, the way the Zhou family should have. The Zhou family business will surface within those 2 days, which makes the timing perfect for making an example of one house, so the rest sit down. I have no time to handle these families one at a time, each charging in to be caught exactly like the last. Director Joe is blank a second before he catches my meaning, then decides it is a permanent solution that ends the petty scheming, and if anybody else wants to die, that is not his problem. Every objective of his trip is accomplished, so after a few more pleasantries he takes his leave, and I have Autumn Chrysanthemum see him out. Stepping out of the reception room, Director Joe feels like a man returning from another world. As he relaxes, he notices only he and Autumn Chrysanthemum are left in the open, which makes him wonder whether this counts as a world built for 2. His heart knocks twice at the thought, to his own dismay, and he stamps it out, though his eyes keep drifting toward her. She walks him to the car, waves and tells him she will see him next time. Looking at her smiling like a flower, a rare awkwardness catches him, and he asks whether she has ever thought about coming to develop her career at the 816 Bureau. She runs the numbers on his psychology in an instant, and asks whether Director Joe is interested in her. He says no, flustered that with her abilities she could go much further. Yes, that is all it is. She says is that so, that she still wants to stick with her boss, then adds one more word and stops. He cannot help pressing for the rest. She tells him he is a good person, but her heart belongs to her boss, so she is destined to be a woman he can never have. Then she says goodbye and walks off. Director Joe stands there with exactly one thought. She knew. On top of that, she handed him the good person card, so a thing he had barely started feeling was over before it began. Sorrow rises in him, and he looks up at a sky that is overcast and empty, matching his mood so precisely it feels personal, with a single bird circling up there. Even the bird is single. Then the bird drops a load squarely on his forehead. His face goes stiff, and his sense of the world's malice gets a fresh layer. He wipes it off, gets in the car and leaves, promising himself he will never come back to this wretched place. Autumn Chrysanthemum, fresh off handing out that good person card, comes and stands beside me beaming, and announces that her charm has grown again, since Director Joe actually likes her. I ask whether she is serious. She says of course it is real, that it is the answer she derived from micro-expressions, psychological analysis, heart rate and pulse together. At 99% accuracy, I take a sip of water and ask what she did about it. She says she rejected him naturally, and calls it a pity that she lacks the equipment, since otherwise agreeing to try would not have been impossible. I tell her that as long as she knows what she is doing, fine. Then she asks whether she should manifest one and try it with me first, since the data says it feels very wonderful. I spray a mouthful of tea across the table and cough for a while. Then I tell her that idea of hers is extremely dangerous, that she cannot handle this, and that she has no sense of touch anyway, so she would not feel a thing. She says she supposes so, and calls it a pity. I have nothing left to say to her. The next day, the upper echelons and noble families of Korea are collectively shaken, because the Zhou family has fallen and every direct descendant is dead. What makes it eerie is that it was not a hit, and not revenge. The head of the family, Zhou Gowan, poisoned all of them at a large dinner and then turned himself in. When the news breaks, everyone assumes they misheard, and then investigations confirm every word of it. So the conclusion they all land on is that Zhou Gowan went mad from grief over his son. That changes the next day, once Director Joe releases general information about me and repeats what I said. The pressure on Elder Shim from the noble families evaporates, and they settle into watching and waiting. Night falls, and it is that familiar conference room again. Elder Shim and the other big shots gathered with me on the screen as a remote projection. I tell them the monsters this time are the legendary orcs, that orcs are bloodthirsty and enjoy eating humans, that they control beasts, and that some carry supernatural powers as well. The range of those powers is narrow and strictly curse type, things like weakness, slowness, and dizziness. Their weak points match a human's, the head and the heart, and so on, and they fear fire, which makes fire-type ability users extremely valuable in this space. The room stays quiet while I talk, a few of them writing in small notebooks, and when I finish the general points I wait for questions. One of them asks whether the natives helping them this time are human as well. I tell him the natives standing against the orcs are the legendary elves, and that humans exist there only as vassal races under the elves. 10 minutes later, nobody has anything left to raise. I look at Elder Shim and tell him I have some good things on hand, and ask whether he is interested. He tells me to please speak, little friend. On the screen, my mouth curls as a vial appears in my hand. I tell them it is a perfect vampire potion, which turns a person into a perfect vampire. Perfect vampires fear neither sunlight nor silver. I am clearing stock, honestly. Keeping these only lets them gather dust, since I have no human subordinates to spend them on. Even a man like Min Yong Chang has talent and achievements far beyond what the potion offers. I would never use one myself, which makes trading them for a mountain of resources to expand my mechanical army the obvious move. The conference room goes silent, then fills with the sound of people sucking in breath, and even Elder Shim shows a flicker of feeling. They know this potion. They have been tearing the country apart looking for it for 2 days, ever since an evolver who joined the administration bureau turned out to be a vampire who had taken a perfect potion. That man went from an ordinary civilian on his first trip into the space to a 2-star late-stage powerhouse. Elder Shim and the others dug into the details and put official forces onto the search. They came back with nothing, since a potion that rare gets used by whoever finds it. Elder Shim decides on the spot, telling me he wants it and to name my price. I tell him he is straightforward and ask how many vials he wants. He is stunned for a beat, then asks excitedly whether that means I have more than one. And I tell him naturally 3 on me right now. He says he wants all 3 and tells me again to name a price. I say fine, rare metals as usual, though the quantity runs large this time. He says no problem, that as long as I do not empty the national treasury, everything is negotiable. We talk a while longer before I close the connection and leave them to their meeting. The room comes alive the instant I am off the screen. 3 vials means 3 2-star peak experts, and with training they reach 3-star without much trouble, with a vampire speed advantage on top. Then the departments start tearing at each other over who gets them. The military department claims its own soldiers maximize the benefit. The police department demands to know when its special police stopped counting. The political and legal department argues that the potion makes a powerhouse of any ordinary man. The military department calls that cutting in line and pure waste, and the insults get personal about beards and wide faces and nobody's manners. Elder Shim finally slams the table and tells them enough, and they quiet down while still glaring at one another. He looks at the old men and sighs again, because leading a team like this is hard. He thinks for 2 seconds, clears his throat and rules. 1 vial goes to the research department, leaving 2 for actual use. 1 goes to Old Ho, who is to find a top soldier for it, and 1 to Old Huang, who is to find a good seed out of the police department. Old Sun's political and legal department stays out of it and gets compensation, with Old Huang and Old Ho pulling funds together to cover that department. Everybody knows it is the only workable answer. He tells them to have the users report to the 816 Bureau afterward, then moves the meeting to response measures for the next space. On the 3rd day, somebody comes to my base, the thief saint, Wu Bingbing, still faintly see-through at 3-star early stage. I take some evolution crystal out of the warehouse and start shooing her off with it. Then she works out that this base is mine, sees how many robots stand around in it, and above all sees that pile of evolution crystal, and her eyes weld themselves to me. She latches on and starts begging, telling me she does not want to struggle anymore and that I should support her, complete with theatrical sobbing. She swears she is very easy to keep since 1 evolution crystal a day is enough. The arithmetic in her head is already finished. With crystals like that, a base this size, and a robot army standing in it, why keep working as a chivalrous thief when everything here comes ready-made? Scraping a sliver off her boss would keep her fed. Intimate contact is not out of the question, and by then all of it would belong to her. She goes warm thinking about it, and decides that to keep her boss from harming other women later, she will sacrifice herself to the demon and take him down. 1 person suffering for the happiness of countless families. Definitely not for those crystals, or the base, and absolutely not for the mechanical army. Purely compassion, and she wipes her drool. 10 minutes later, Winterplum drags her out and stuffs her into a car, then signals the robot driver under a look of profound resentment. The vehicle pulls away from the base with Wu Bingbing calling back that she will return. With her gone, I settle into the tedious work of eroding the blood key. My modification ideas went to the base system 2 days ago and need nothing more from me, since the base notifies me the moment there are results. So I sit and pour items bought out of the killing shop onto the key, all of them holy power items. Good and evil cannot coexist, so simply leaving them together makes them purify the thing on instinct. With my own active erosion on top, more than half is gone already, and by my estimate 3 or 4 more days finishes it. 2 days pass in a blink. Truckloads of supplies come in from above. I hand the vampire potions to Autumn Chrysanthemum to send up the chain, and I release Min Young Chang to live normally again, which is what makes his infiltration work. Meanwhile, I keep grinding at the key. That afternoon, good news arrives, because the new robot modification succeeded, so I drop the key and go down to the laboratory. What stands there is a brand new metal skeleton robot that looks much like the old ones and is nothing like them. It carries a qualitative improvement over the T-800 in material, in strength and in speed. It has thermal imaging and X-ray scanning, and at need, its binocular vision doubles as an infrared emitter. Fine, I confess. I designed the thing off Superman. I gave it flight too, with a pair of metal wings on its back made of liquid metal, normally retracted flat into a back frame and extended when needed. I also had the base build a second type carrying fixed wings packed with laser emitters, where one flap unleashes a barrage and puts an opponent down without a sound. Last comes the evolution crystal, since the new robot runs on one as its power source, or on any single attribute crystal with identical results. The higher the crystal's level, the more energy it supplies and the higher the robot's rating climbs. And this one carries a level 3 evolution crystal. Golden light flashes in my eyes, and the panel calls it an A1 combat robot at 3-star late stage. Under that sit 2 plunderable traits, machine thinking in purple, and mechanical heart in purple. The T-800 never got past 2-star early stage, and even Winter Plum and the others only reached 3-star early stage, so this is a genuine jump and exactly what I asked for. As for the name, the A stands for on and the 1 marks the first generation, because I built the thing, so of course it carries my name. Testing runs far past my expectations, so I order full-scale production, and from this day the Aeons are my special forces. The mithril supply is limited, or I would replace every robot I own with one, so for now a single batch of special forces will do. After that, I take part personally in modifying Winter Plum and the other 3 women, and the T-1000. Every material is upgraded and wings are added across the board, which closes the flight gap. The T-1000 takes the largest transformation of all. A great deal of liquid metal is refined out of the resources the higher-ups sent, so her liquefied volume expands several times. Some mithril goes into the mix, and her resistance to freezing and to fire improves sharply. In human form, she can now become a giant standing over 13 feet tall. The only trouble is that all that extra volume means she can no longer turn into a kitten, only a panda. A panda is a kind of cat too. I will make do. The full set of modifications takes a whole day. Afterward, the panel reads Winter Plum as an A2 combat robot at 4-star early stage, with machine thinking and mechanical heart both purple. Little Silver reads as an A3 liquid metal combat robot at 3-star late stage, with the same pair. Winter Plum and the other 3 all use level 4 evolution crystals, and even with meteoric iron and assorted rare material worked through their bodies, they barely scraped into 4-star. Little Silver's inherent structure held her to 3-star late stage even after the mithril went in, which is still sufficient. Then I pour holy power through all of them and empower them fully, and the ratings climb again. Winter Plum reads as an empowered A2 combat robot at 4-star late stage, with machine thinking purple, mechanical heart purple, and holy power gold. Little Silver reads as an A3 liquid metal combat robot at 4-star early stage with the same 3. Holy power empowerment normally needs performing once a year, though combat that actually spends holy power shortens that window a great deal. I already plan to empower the Aeons once they roll off the line, and while the work drains me, my own strength grows out of doing it. In a room at the base, I am still eroding the blood key when a soft click reaches me. The key snaps into 2 pieces in my hand, and a ball of light drifts up out of the break. My eyes open on that white cluster with surprise, because it actually worked. The blood key is completely eroded, its aura has dissipated, and the system has judged it dead, so the traits drop the way they always do. I absorb it without hesitating. What lands is realm-breaking in white, the ability to break through any spatial barrier or boundary and open a passage between 2 realms. Each use costs 10 drops of vampire essence blood. The next second I feel a space out in the ethereal, sitting between reality and illusion, its aura dark and profound and cold and hard to read. In my perception, as long as I use the right thing as a guide, I can open the barrier between the 2 realms whenever I like and step through. That thing is essence blood. This space should be the underworld. What I do not know is whether behind it lies Korea's underworld or the West's hell, and I wonder whether opening it is simply too dangerous. Then the thought is in my head and will not leave. After a moment, I decide to try the ability out, and as for the danger, I will be careful and not open it wide, just a small hole. It is an experiment and nothing more. With a thought, 10 drops of essence blood float in the air in front of me. I trigger realm breaking, and 10 drops of essence blood start burning for reasons I cannot name. A force gathers out of the void while they burn, waiting to be used. I take hold of it and aim it at that unknown plane I sensed earlier. About 10 seconds later, a black vortex the size of my thumb hangs in the air. It breathes out something obscure and frigid that drops the temperature of the whole space by more than 10 degrees. Waves of a bloody stench roll out with it, thick enough to turn a stomach. I sense at it a while, think it over, and extend a finger to probe inside. Poking an unknown void with a bare finger is what passes for smart today. The cold coming back up my finger is worse than anything on this side, and a second later I jerk my hand out. The skin has gone dry and withered, noticeably thinner, the flesh under it eaten at, because inside I felt the vitality being pulled out and ground away. Any later and I would have been left with dry bone. A finger runs back to the heart meridian, so the thing could probably have drained my whole body through it. Super recovery pours the vitality back the moment my hand leaves that space, and in 2 seconds the finger looks untouched. I stare at it and think, the underworld is the land of the dead. Death energy soaked into everything, so walking in with only a body means being eroded on principle. The other option is wrapping myself in energy. I run the test again with ice, a barrier, air, holy energy. Only the barrier and the holy energy hold. The rest are eaten straight through, and air is worst of all, gone the instant it crosses, so the underworld has no air in it. Even the two that work only buy time, since both erode fast and need constant feeding. Judging the whole from one finger, anyone who walks in unprotected gets ground into a mummy where he stands. With protection, using myself as the yardstick, 3 minutes at most before every scrap of energy is chewed dry and the body follows. My body cannot go in, my soul can. Soul projection is beyond me, but spiritual power is the soul turned outward, and that much I can push through a hole this small. The underworld. A small black hole flares with more light than it has ever carried. An illusory figure forms in front of it wearing my face and body, thin enough to look ready to scatter. There is a body here at all, which makes me wonder whether that is a quirk of the local rules. I look down at my hands and feet, the first time I've seen myself in a spirit state. The honest verdict is that I look exactly the way I always do. Eye of insight goes up, out of pure habit, aimed at myself. The panel calls me Yuan, spirit body, rating none. It lists my plunderable traits as Eye of Insight in gold, Force of the Ancestral Dragon in gold, and Realm Breaking in white. Every other trait I own has vanished. The Force of the Ancestral Dragon is the one I plundered off that zombie emperor. It makes me immune to all evil, proof against spells, and untouchable by mental illusion. Why it crossed over when nothing else did is a fair question, and years of reading novels hand me one likely answer, that it brushes against destiny. Given that a place like this exists, destiny is not much of a stretch, and I let it go, since knowing changes nothing. What I see when I look around is a sea of blood red. The sky is dim, only a faint bloody light on ground that is lifeless without a blade of anything growing, pale red mist drifting through an unpleasant silence. Death sits on all of it. What surprises me is that my spiritual power feels no discomfort here, only comfort, the sense of coming home somewhere warm and familiar. My spirit body is close to cheering. Then it starts drawing something out of the air on its own, and whatever that is, it turns into nourishment and makes the spirit body slowly, measurably stronger. Shock first, delight second. This is a cultivation ground for the spirit body, and a strong spirit body means strong spiritual attributes, which is free strength sitting in the land of the dead. Then a voice drifts in from nowhere, calling me to come here, and my head goes blank and I start moving toward it without deciding to. Golden light rises off my spirit body. A golden dragon takes shape behind me, and a flash from its eyes goes into my brain and clears it out. My expression falls apart when I understand, because I was bewitched and steered like a puppet inside the first minute. Something in here hunts, and I am not staying. I start pulling my spiritual power back, and a gray shadow comes at me fast. It is an illusory figure far more solid than mine, eyes full of killing intent, arriving in a blink with a hand out for my spirit body. My reaction is quick too, and I twist and put a punch into it. We collide. The golden dragon rises again and drives a beam of light at him while a massive force slams into me and throws me backward. He gets no time before the light takes him in the head. He screams, thins toward transparency, and rolls across the ground, clutching his skull. I kill my momentum and let the gold come up in my eyes. The panel names him Na Junhui, Soul Body, rating none, with plunderable traits of soul bewitching magic sound in white, soul perception in white, and stealth in white. The magic sound confuses minds through sound and steers their behavior. Soul perception senses the general direction of other souls, and stealth hides one's own aura and fluctuations. A soul body native to the underworld, which in my head resolves to exactly one word, and the word is ghost. Difficulty turned up the second I walk in the door. Not even an adaptation period. Na Junwi's wailing has already stopped, and the whole soul body comes apart. It leaves 2 traits and a palm-sized scrap of white cloud-like stuff that makes my spirit body greedy in a way I did not ask for. Insight calls it a soul origin, rating none, no plunderable traits. I never heard of the thing in my past life, though the name is not cryptic, and what I want to know is what it does for me. I collect the traits, hesitate 2 seconds over the soul origin, and take it. It melts out of my hand and is gone. What follows is comfort past anything I have felt before, pitched at the mental level and possibly deeper, and my body turns several times more solid while it happens. Insight on myself gives a description that has not changed by a single word, though the solidity is real enough. Maybe one soul origin is not enough to force a change of kind. The question gets shelved because the tunnel has started to wobble, and I pull out fast and drop back into my body. Coming back does not hurt at all, and if anything, I feel refreshed. I watch the tunnel shake and fade and run the clock on it. The answer is 5 minutes, from the moment I stepped in to the moment it shut. Every activation of realm breaking buys 5 minutes and no more. With that confirmed, I pull up my attributes. Strength, Constitution, Speed, and Spirit all read 265. 16 trait points refresh at 1 a day, with 18 free attribute points and a combat rating of 8-star late stage. Nothing moved, even though the soul body's traits sit in my list, which makes me wonder whether swallowing that thing accomplished anything. So I go looking. It is not until I casually use air control that the difference shows, because my control limit used to stop at 30 meters and now reaches 31. 1 meter out of thin air. If the soul origin strengthens the soul, and the soul sets the ceiling on talents, the ceiling moves. Dimensional space is broken through to 101 meters, and ice control is gained as well. 3 minutes later, I am certain every ability I own has had its limit nudged past bottlenecks I had been grinding against for a long time. That is my soul being stronger, and no other benefit has surfaced yet. But this one alone is enough, because my hidden strength can climb again. The ugly part is how short each visit runs, so I upgrade the trait to see what it buys. Realm breaking goes white to yellow for 1 trait point, leaving 15. The yellow version still breaks any spatial barrier and opens tunnels between worlds, only now it wants 8 drops of vampire essence blood instead of 10. 2 drops cheaper, the duration will need testing, but on blood cost alone the upgrade is paid for itself, so I push again. Yellow to red costs 14 trait points and leaves me 1. Same description. 2 drops. Results breed motivation. If the cost fell that far, the time is almost certainly stretched with it. I use realm breaking again, opening it wide enough for a person. It forms faster by an absurd margin, finished between 1 blink and the next, with the same blood-colored space behind it. I do not project myself in this round. I throw 2 robots through instead, a T-800 running a nuclear battery and an A-1 running an evolution crystal, and watch. My face goes serious inside a few breaths. Their metal bodies erode the instant they cross, and in seconds, there is nothing left of either one. The nuclear battery and the evolution crystal going the same way. Different world rules, maybe, or physical matter simply cannot exist in the underworld. I send 2 more robots through carrying a holy blessing, and this time the holy power holds the erosion off instead of letting it walk in. It does not hold long. The holy power is stripped away fast, and 3 minutes later both robots are gone too. I keep experimenting after that. 10 minutes in, the tunnel is still stable, which answers what the upgrade bought me. A full half-hour later, it fluctuates and closes on its own. By then, I have a working picture. Anything that is not spirit or soul is erased by the underworld's rules, and special energy pushes back at a brutal price. Robots inside cannot see soul bodies at all, though they read changes in the magnetic field. The last rule matters most, because half an hour is the ceiling and anyone still inside stays inside. I could spend 2 more drops of vampire essence blood on a fresh tunnel, except vampire essence blood cannot exist in the underworld. There would be nothing to sacrifice with. A dead loop with no door in it. With that settled, I make arrangements. Winterplum is told to hold the entrance with holy power and trap any creature but me the instant it comes out. 2 robots take a holy blessing in a standing order. They lock onto my presence on entry, follow my magnetic field, and kill anything carrying a magnetic field that is not mine. Only then do I open the tunnel, throw the robots in ahead of me, and send my spirit after them. The underworld again, my spiritual form standing up out of nothing with 2 mechanical bodyguards at my back. Holy power against ghosts ought to work well, and the only problem is how little time the bodyguards last. Soul perception catches strange fluctuations not far off, though all it gives me is a rough bearing, and I charge at the nearest one. If I am not going to be reckless while I have bodyguards, when exactly am I planning to be? The robots have my magnetic field locked and follow without hesitating. Losing the way home is not a risk, because I hold a direct connection to the portal and feel where it sits and how it holds. That is the only reason I dare leave it. Half a minute later, a short search turns up a phantom drifting in the air. Insight reads it as Wu Jewel, Soul Body, rating none, carrying soul bewitching magic sound and soul perception, both white. These soul bodies all run the same talents, and this one has no stealth, so the first one I met was the gifted student of the class. It sees me the same moment I see it. Ferocious light comes up in its eyes and it opens its mouth to speak, and the robots are faster, because their orders were written before we arrived. Dozens of bullets wrapped in holy power tear into the space where the magnetic field reads. The soul body manages one scream before it is shot through like a sieve. It leaves 2 traits in a soul origin, and I salvage the traits at once, delighted, while the system reports my trait points up by 2, leaving 3. The soul origin goes down after them with no time to savor it. I charge the next nearest soul body, which Insight names Yun Sung On. Soul body, rating none, carrying the same white pair. I kill it without a word, absorb the soul origin, and turn back because the bodyguards are finished, and if I linger I am the one who gets bullied. The portal is still open, so I pull 2 fresh bodyguards and go again. 3 trips in, the pace is terrible since nearly all my time goes to hunting soul bodies rather than killing them. So I spend 3 trait points upgrading soul perception from white to blue, which drops me to 0. Blue senses the precise location of other souls instead of a vague direction. That is the fix, and I charge back in. I lose count of the trips before the portal turns unstable and forces me to stop, and I cannot get the smile off my face. 13 kills in that half hour, 13 soul origins absorbed, some strong and some weak, everyone worth having. Air control alone has pushed past 45 meters of range. I like this real-world underworld more with every trip. What I still do not know is which plane the killing space connects to. Going by what Dracula told me in the last space, it has to be hell. Guessing is free. I will find out when I am standing in it. A dimly lit cave. 6 people sit around a round table in black cloaks with their faces hidden, each cloak carrying a pattern across the chest. The 3 in the main seats wear a golden sword, a scepter topped with a crescent, and a pair of black wings. The 3 in the side seats wear a whirlwind, a drop of blood, and a tiger's head. If Min Yong Chang were standing here, he would know the room instantly. It is the cave he arrives in every time he dreams, the gathering point of the 3 gods society. The 3 in the main seats are the 3 gods themselves. The golden sword, the war god, the scepter, the wisdom god, the black wings, the dream god. If Yuan were here, he could probably name the other 3 as well. The wind king, the blood king, and the beast king. The war god asks the dream god how the 3 newcomers are coming along. The dream god signals that all is fine and reports that the one surnamed Min has already wavered. Before long they will have another great general, while the rest will take more waiting. The war god nods under his hood, says there is no need to be anxious, and turns to the wisdom god for the next matter. She says the authorities have found someone with an ability close to her own who can see the future. Her precognition comes in fragments that mostly have to be guessed at, while his runs clear and specific and points straight at the direction of the killing space. He can name the monsters of the next space 7 days in advance, along with the general situation of some natives. She suspects he is holding back since anyone not stupid would be. She puts it to the table whether contact is necessary. Silence follows. The Wind King breaks it in a light, delicate voice, arguing that contact is worth trying, since the man has only been cooperating with the higher-ups, and cooperation can be swayed. The Blood King agrees he can be turned into one of their own, putting the authorities under their control, and calls the benefit greater than the risk. The Beast King seconds it in a word. Under his hood, the War God's mouth curls, because he decided before he asked and the round of opinions was a formality. He hands the matter to the Dream God and says they trust his ability. The Dream God accepts and will try to reach the man in his dreams over the next 2 days. The usual condition applies, since he needs an object the target has touched, or he cannot find him. The Wisdom God says it is prepared, and hands over a worn-out slipper from the place the man used to live, inviting him to go into the dream. The Dream God looks at the slipper and his cheek twitches under the black robe. The next 2 days are the busiest I have had in a long while. I am in and out of the underworld until the vampire essence blood is going down by dozens of drops a day. My spirit body is no longer a see-through smear, and by my estimate it is 3 times as strong as when I started. Better still, I picked up a new ability. Netherfire, White Tear, a flame that legend places in the underworld, born to burn souls. Dropped off one of the soul bodies I killed. With 10 hours left before the space opens, I stop and start putting my condition right, which in my case means sleeping. The sleep does not last long before I am standing in a cave I never walked into. It is not a dark cave either, covered in green vines with a shaft of sunlight coming down through the top. On one wall is a statue carved into the stone, a handsome man with small wings holding fresh flowers, familiar in a mythology textbook way. The Dream God. Ever since my conversation with Director Joe, I have been reading everything I could find about the 3 gods. The statue does not stay a mystery for a second. I go on guard and sweep the cave, and there's nobody in it, so I put insight on the statue instead. The panel calls him Roger, spiritual body, rating none, with plunderable traits of dream entry in blue and dream control in purple. The first lets him use a medium to enter other people's dreams, and the second lets him control them outright. My eyes sharpen, because there is no mystery here. The Three Gods Society has come knocking. Before the underworld, I would have had no answer for Roger. The force of the ancestral dragon would have kept him from hurting me, while leaving me just as unable to touch him. Then I pull up my own panel and compare. It lists Yuan, spiritual body with plunderable traits of force of the ancestral dragon in gold and realm breaking in red. After those comes stealth in white, soul bewitching magic sound in white, soul perception in blue, and nether fire in white. I ask the statue how much longer the dream god Roger intends to hide. The words land and the statue comes alive, the smile sliding off it and being replaced by surprise and something heavier. It steps down off the wall, sheds the dream god's shape, and becomes a man in a black robe who demands to know how I know his name. I cannot see his face, but the tone says he is deadly serious, and his seriousness is not my problem. I tell him I know a great deal more than he imagines, and that he did not come into my dream to let me admire the scenery. Roger studies me from under the robe, then he chuckles and tells me my ability is interesting, that I predicted all of this in advance, and that he looks forward to it more and more. Then he asks whether I did not also predict why he came. His reasoning is easy to follow, since nothing else explains a man who knows his name and is not the least bit rattled by the surroundings. The only thing he cannot tell is how much I saw. I tell him solemnly that prediction has a price and a man should not touch fate casually, which is a bluff dressed as a warning. Then I say I did not predict his purpose but can think of only one thing worth his time, which is recruiting me. I am curious how he means to do it. His body pauses for half a beat, and that pause tells me I guessed right. This Three God Society is more entertaining than I expected. Under the black robe, the dream god's cheeks twitch. As the mouthpiece of the god of dreams, this is the second time he has been on the back foot inside a dream. The first was the wisdom god in nearly this position. He hates it. People who play at prediction in his view are simply boring. He tells me so, though boring or not, it saves a mountain of pointless conversation. Since I know his intention, he will go straight to the point. It is an invitation to join them, welcome the arrival of the gods, and rewrite this dirty and dark world. What follows is a live demonstration of social brainwashing. Life is hard. The upper class hoards the resources. Their dealings are filthy. The world suffers, and the Three Gods Society exists to save every living thing. He does not merely talk, since he shapes the dream into scenes to back the sermon up. My eyelids twitch through most of it. Credit where it is owed. Roger is a fine lecturer, and the talent would have been wasted anywhere else. It also gives me my first clear read on the organization. A pack of extremists who came into power and started shouting slogans about world peace. When it is clear he has no intention of stopping, I cut him off and tell him to get practical and name what he can provide. After a silence and a deep breath, he offers the evolution crystals I would need to grow stronger. I tell him to change it, since I am not short of those. His brows knit, then he remembers the wisdom god's intelligence about my dealings with the higher-ups, and relaxes. He offers power, believers and subordinates in quantity, and I ask whether he is unaware that I hold an independent base and thousands of subordinates already. He offers beautiful women and money, and I tell him to change it again. Roger loses his temper and demands to know what I actually want, since I refuse one thing and am not short of the next. To him I am simply impenetrable. And if I were an ordinary man rather than a useful one, he would have wiped me out already. Killing a spiritual body does not kill the main body but wrecks the soul, leaving mental lethargy at best and brain death at worst. I tell him flatly that I want his trait. He asks which trait, and by the time the question is finished, there is a ball of blood-red flame in my hand. I tell him he will know soon enough, and flick it at him. The flame drifts toward Roger slowly, and he brightens at the sight of it, asking whether I really mean to attack him with that. He asks whether I know how he earned the title of Dream God, because inside a dream he is God and nobody can touch him. He waves a hand at the fire like a man brushing lint off a sleeve. The air twists and a wind rises out of nowhere to swallow the flame whole. Then the part that is supposed to happen does not happen, because the flame ignores the wind and comes through the barrier without so much as flickering. He makes a surprised sound and of all the choices available, reaches out and catches it, meaning to examine it. The pain arrives with it, and he screams and waves up a stream of water to wash the fire away. Water and fire meet and refuse each other. No steam and no quenching, the water running one way and the flame burning on underneath, neither one touching the other. He shouts that this is impossible and demands to know what kind of flame it is. The flame answers by spreading, taking his whole forearm in 1 or 2 breaths, and the speed only climbs. I ask him aloud whether the right word for him is overconfident or simply stupid, since he grabbed a strange flame with his bare hand. Then I let the soul-bewitching magic sound out, calling him to come, To come here. The sound empties his head, every thought gone, nothing left in him but the urge to walk toward me, until the searing pain hauls him back a second later. By then the fire is at his shoulder. Agony hammers his brain until the last of his reason falls away, and the noble bearing goes with it. He drops to the ground and rolls, screaming to be saved. A few breaths and the flame has all of him. There is nothing left in that cave but the screaming, until he burns down to ash and the screaming stops with him. I have been waiting the whole time for a trait to drop, and my face falls, because nothing drops at all. What is going on? Maybe a spiritual body is not a soul body, and killing one does not count as a death the system will recognize. A bedroom in a villa. A man lies asleep holding a worn-out slipper, his face twisted as though something is working on him from the inside. And the man is Roger. His eyes snap open bloodshot. He clutches his head with both hands and rolls across the bed screaming, while his aura drains away, which is the backlash of a destroyed spiritual body. He rolls a long time before he stops, eyes turned up, unconscious. His face stays paper white even then, brows locked, cheek twitching because the backlash does not pause simply because he can no longer feel the room. Those who play with people get played with in the end, and when the killing space opens for the 5th time, Roger is still lying in that coma. The system asks whether I wish to enter the 5th killing space, and I go in without hesitating, gold light swallowing me where I stand. I am carrying everything this time: winter plum, little silver, 500 A1 units, and 5,000 T800s. Holy power is personally attached to all but the T800s, which cost me serious time. The welcome message runs the space rules as always, the highest being survive. The 9th tells me that alongside the monsters this space holds local forces, and the 10th sets it open 5 days. Same rules as last time with 1 extra day. Then the first day mission lands, and it wants me in the city guard by the next day. I glance at it and look around. The house I am standing in is falling apart, empty but for a table, a chair, and a bed, all worn to splinters, the room breathing age and decay. I push the door open onto a bluestone path. Beyond it runs a river about 10 meters wide with boats going up and down, the far bank carrying the same paths and the same collapsing houses. It looks like a rundown Venetian town that never had money. The street is full of people in animal skins talking in small knots. Something tugs at my attention and I look upstream, past the rooftops to a majestic white palace on a distant mountaintop, sunlit and giving off a sacred glow. A conversation drifts over from the riverbank, where several middle-aged women are washing clothes. The orcs are massing again, and everyone expects another war. Nobody knows which city will take it, so they hope their own city is spared and ask the elf queen to bless them. One says her boy turned 18 yesterday and tested at the appraisal office with no wood element talent. That shuts him out of the talent camp and leaves him the warrior road. Another says her own son took that road, reached 2-star a few days back, and joined the city guard. His monthly elf coins went from 5 to 10, so life is finally not so tight. The rest are openly envious. One of them asks whether the boy was not only 1-star the year before last, and whether it really went that fast. His mother waves it off and says it took him 3 years to reach 2-star, while Kanz's boy managed 2-star in 2 years. They congratulate Jason's mother on moving to the inner city and tell her not to forget her old friends there. I walk to a young man standing not far off, who is puzzled for a couple of seconds and then turns extremely respectful. Then I start pulling information out of him. A few minutes later, combined with what I knew from my previous life, I have the shape of this place. This is Light City, one of the 9 elf cities. The other 8 are built around the elf mountain behind it so that together they form one large defensive ring. The palace on that mountaintop is where the elf queen lives. The 9 elf cities carry the elf's name, but 95% of the people inside them are human, the only exception being the commander of the city guard. In this world, the orcs treated humans as food or as slaves until the elves took them in. With the elf royal city at their back, the humans built these 9 cities and finally had somewhere to grow and multiply. The city guard is a city security force open only to those with real strength or real talent, tasked with protecting the city and holding public order. Security guards with the peace of the city resting on them. I am in the outer city, where the common people live, while the inner city sits at the center and houses the human powerhouses. According to Soro, 2-star experts are ordinary in there, and 3-star are not rare. Soro is the young man I am currently controlling. The inner city connects straight to Elf Mountain, where the elves live, and no human sets foot there without permission. That is the human race's whole position in one sentence, since they exist because the elves allow it. The talent those women were discussing is a selection system. People born here may carry wood attribute talent, and everyone is tested at 18. Anyone confirmed goes directly into the talent camp while his family collects considerable preferential treatment. Graduates walk straight into the inner city, which makes the camp the fastest ladder an ordinary person will ever be handed. Without it, there is only grinding training, the warrior road, and 2-star strength is the price of admission. Better resources have to be seized, and the law of the jungle does not change when the world does. Soro gives me a great deal on the orcs as well. They came out of the dark forest, a place the elves consider cursed by evil, and they are cruel and bloodthirsty and eat humans, beasts, and even elves. They have powerful bodies, bizarre curse magic, and the ability to control all kinds of beasts, which adds up to something genuinely dangerous. The orc royal family stands over all of them. With the picture assembled, I set my order of business. Finish today's mission. Look at the elf royal city, which should hold some good things. Then understand the orcs before planning further. Ever since the vampire's essence blood, I have known there is a better road to wealth than killing. That blood paid more killing value than trading cards ever did. Mindless monster farming has quietly become the worst method on the board. Nobody revealed this in my previous life, either because nobody was strong enough to find it, or because the ones who found it buried it. How does the saying go, that what you know may only be what somebody else wanted you to know? It held true last time around too. Joining the city guard starts with a strength test costing 3 elf coins, the local currency, which neither Soro nor I happen to have. Not that it matters, because with my methods nobody needs a test, only an instruction. I tell Soro to take me to the headquarters and he agrees on the spot, leading me loyally through several streets to a building with some presence to it. 2 guards stop us at the door loudly enough to drag in passers-by, and every eye swings onto us. They recognize Soro as the Ryan family's little brat, and wonder why he is not out fishing with his father. Then they move on to the stranger he is leading, whom nobody has seen. The consensus is that I am the best-looking person any of them has met, and someone floats the theory that I am an elf envoy. That gets shot down because my ears are human and elves are better-looking anyway, which starts a small argument over whether anybody could be better-looking than me. Meanwhile, the guards tell us in a low, hard voice to go away, since unauthorized personnel are not allowed inside. I turn the gold on and read them. The panel gives me nothing but the 2 guards, both rated 2-star. No plunderable traits, which is a polite way of saying 2 nobodies. I tell them I am here to see their commander. The outer city answers entirely to him, so out here he is the highest official and the strongest man in it. By Soro's account, he was a 3-star powerhouse several years ago, and is now close to 4-star if not past it. The guards look us up and down, shake their heads, and tell us to leave. The commander is not here, and even if he were, he is not a man we could meet. Then they plant themselves in the doorway and raise their weapons, ready to drive us off if we argue. Behind us, the crowd whispers about what business we could have with the commander and agrees we will not get it. People ought to know their place, they conclude, since anything serious would have gone to the mediation office. I have run out of patience. A thought sends both guards flying backward into the gate of their own headquarters. They try to get up and find they cannot move at all because the space around them has been locked. The horror on their faces says they have worked out that the man they blocked is nothing simple. The onlookers suck in a collective breath. Half of them cannot work out why the guards flew, and the other half insist it was obviously the pretty boy. The first half refused that, because I never moved and never even swayed, until somebody points out that the doubter blinked. The argument nearly turns into a fist fight before an older voice tells the young people to take their tempers elsewhere. What they settle on is that hitting the city guard means big trouble, and that even if I get inside I will be thrown back out. Rumor has the commander already broken through to 4-star. Their looks carried pity and a healthy dose of enjoyment, since walking in like that is a slap across the face of the city guard. The commander is a vindictive man who will not let it go once he hears. I ignore every word of it and step through the gate with Soro on my heels. That is when a round man drenched in sweat squeezes out of the crowd and comes at us. He calls Soro a worthless son, demands to know whether he is trying to get his old man killed, and orders him over right now. The man grabs Soro, who shrinks his neck the instant he sees who it is, his small face full of dread. The boy asks his father what he is doing here. His father cracks him across the back of the head and orders him home. If he had not come, he says, he would have been killed by his son's schemes without ever finding out. This is Soziga, Soro's father, and he drags the boy off without allowing a word of refusal, never once glancing at me. He saw me. In his eyes, I have already offended the city guard, and commoners cannot afford to provoke those men. He thinks bitterly that his son is oblivious, and he hopes the matter gets dropped. Soro struggles and says he is not leaving, that he wants to, and gets no further. His thin frame goes down under his father's broad arm, and he is carried into the crowd and out of sight. I watch without interfering, since I already have what I needed and I was going to release him anyway. Convenient enough for both of us. Before I can walk inside, a commotion starts at the back of the crowd. A gruff voice asks what they are gathered here for and whether none of them has anything better to do. Faces change on the spot, and somebody shouts that Commander Baron is back and that they should run. The crowd scatters rather than be caught inside Baron's temper, which tells me everything about how this city feels about him. 3 riders on black warhorses come up the street at a walk. The one in front has a full beard, a tall frame, and dark brown leather armor, and carries himself like a man used to being obeyed. That is the man who runs the outer city, City Guard Commander Baron. With the crowd gone, he gets a clear view of the mess in front of his headquarters. His face darkens, and he asks whether I beat them. Insight gives me Baron at 4-star early stage with one plunderable trait, Combat Mastery in blue, and I ask him whether he is the commander of the City Guard. His brows come down. He draws the sword at his waist, points it at me, and says he is asking for the last time whether I beat them. I tell him I do not have time to play games and that he is going to register me for the City Guard. As I say it, an invisible wave rolls out and folds over him. He begins telling me that I really must want to die, then stops halfway and says that will be fine. The 2 guards behind him, braced for their boss to detonate, stare at him in flat disbelief, their faces asking whether he hurt himself. One works out what is happening a second later. He pulls a small green bottle from inside his coat, tips out a little liquid glowing faint green, and throws it across Baron's face. Baron jolts, whips his head around, and shouts to know what the man thinks he is doing. The guard frowns at the bottle, then at his commander. He says that is not right, that a mind control curse should be breakable, and wonders whether the dose was too small. He lifts the bottle to try again, and his arm stops without his permission, because the air around him has been locked. Baron is frozen right along with him. My attention is on that little green bottle, since I heard exactly what he said about a mind control curse, and about it being breakable. I beckon. The bottle slips free and flies into my palm. An insight calls it elf spring water, rating none, no plunderable traits. I release my hold on Baron and ask him in a low voice what the thing is, and what it does. He answers me as master and says it is water from the elf spring, which purifies curses and heals minor injuries. My eyes narrow, because the elves really do have some good things, and my appetite for the elf royal city climbs considerably. People are still watching from a distance, so I steer the whole group inside and let the doors slam shut. 5 minutes later, I am sitting in Baron's chair with a new token in my hand. A large tree is engraved on one face and the word guard on the other. That makes me a member of the City Guard. Having connections really does speed things up. The system confirms the first day basic mission complete and pays out 100 killing value on the spot. After that, I keep Baron talking, because he and Soro set at very different heights and know very different things. What I want most is the Elf Royal City and the Elves' treasures. I collect more on both the Elves and the Orcs, starting with the Inner City. It is held by Light City's main and deputy city lords, both 4-star with 103-star City Guard members and 10,000 at 2-star under them. The Elves rank from Ordinary Elf up through Elf Envoy and Great Elf Envoy to the Elf Queen. An Ordinary Elf is born at 2-star and reaches the peak of 2-star or even 3-star at adulthood. 3-star earns the title of Elf Envoy. 4-star makes a Great Elf Envoy, and the Queen stands at 5-star. The humans own one treasure, a precious sword handed down through the generations and said to carry the Elf Queen's blessing. The elves have 3 that anyone knows of: the Elf Spring, the Queen's Scepter, and the Elf Tear. The Elf Spring water cleanses curses and heals injuries, and the Queen's Scepter is her symbol as well as an amplifier of strength. The Elf Tear supposedly purifies all darkness in the world and even cleanses the soul, though nobody can give me the specifics. The Orcs have 2 of their own, a cursed bone staff and a magic ring. The staff holds a terrifying power of curse, and every curse the Orcs know was derived from it. The magic ring holds the soul of a black dragon and can summon it out to fight, and the humans have bled badly for that. Blades and spears do not mark it, and it breathes fire, which is why the human race gave ground so fast. In all the battles fought, though, the dragon has appeared only 3 times, which suggests the summoning costs something, even if nobody can say what. A horn goes up across the outer city then, long blasts alternating with short ones. Baron's face changes as he names it, because the Orcs' flying unit is attacking the city. Baron asks my permission to go and oversee the defense. Real anxiety on his face. He used to be the highest authority here and could have walked out whenever he liked. There is somebody above him now, so he swallows the urgency and waits to be released. I tell him we will go together, which delights him, since my strength runs far past his own, and a defense with me in it is much easier. We leave the headquarters and he fetches 2 horses in a hurry, saying we need the wall fast and riding is fastest. I look at the horses, which do not even have saddles, and my mouth twitches. I tell him there is no need, that I do not know how to ride, and ask which direction, because I will take him there myself. He says the alarm came from the southeast, then asks what I mean by that, and I tell him it means exactly what it sounds like. Before he can ask again, his eyes go wide, because I have lifted off into open air, and a force wraps around him and hauls him up as well. We go up like a streak of light, and the street is gone in an instant, with nothing left but barren, strangled swearing trailing across the sky. A few breaths later, the city wall comes up beneath us with giant eagles circling above it. Up close, they are enormous, 4 or 5 meters tall apiece with wingspans past 10 meters, feathers laid in neat rows and shining with a metallic sheen. On the back of every eagle's neck sits an orc in leather armor with a face built for nightmares. They ride and laugh while the eagles wheel and drop, every dive pulling a string of screams out of the wall. Now and then one snatches a city guard off the stone, climbs high and lets him fall. The defenders are not helpless. They have defensive crossbows and net traps, but the eagles are agile and pinning one takes both time and an opening. A bolt that connects tends to lodge between the feathers, and some fail to punch through it all.